Chapter 2246. It was as if the treasured sword had pierced the pagoda. The pagoda's shadow rippled a few times before disappearing. The sword's light also flickered continuously before disappearing. Hee fall. 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 The cultivator regained his confidence and chanted an incantation. A string of pagoda shadows instantly fell, and the sharp sound of the wind could be heard incessantly. Break. The swordsman's expression changed slightly. This time his fingertips did not move, but the entire sword art was raised. The flying sword itself rushed towards the pagoda's shadow. Puff puff, a series of sounds rang out. All the shadows were pierced by the flying sword, but the meteor flying sword's tail was gradually disappearing. Rumble, a cool sound rang out, and the pagoda finally landed on the flying sword. The flying sword, which seemed to have exhausted all its strength, was suddenly suppressed, like a poisonous snake's weak point being stuck. Woo! With a mournful cry, the flying sword fell from mid-air. Puff! A small mouthful of blood was spat out from the swordsman's mouth. This swordsman's mind was also damaged. Withdraw! The Foundation establishment cultivator laughed maliciously. The magic power in his body surged. Under his control, the pagoda created a huge whirlpool, sucking in the falling flying sword and the swordsman himself. Both of them were forcefully pulled in several feet. Senior brother Xiang's face was pale. He knew that he had met a powerful enemy. He suddenly opened his mouth, and an inch-long golden sword flew out, rushing into the damaged flying sword just now. The flying sword faintly emitted a faint golden light. At the same time, senior brother Xiang's figure also flew up. With a wave of his hand, the flying sword fell into his hand. Kill! Senior brother Xiang shouted. His entire body transformed into a sword's light, and he became one with the sword, piercing towards the pagoda. Clang! A loud sound rang out. This sword precisely pierced the edge of the pagoda. The tip of senior brother Xiang's flying sword broke, and the swordsman's figure also trembled violently. However, a crack also appeared on the pagoda. Hiss! The Foundation establishment cultivator sucked in a breath of cold air. His mind also felt a slight pain. He thought to himself, sword cultivators are indeed impressive. But that was not all. Senior brother Xiang's figure flashed in the air and paused for a moment. Then he turned into a sword and flew into the distance like a meteor. The Foundation establishment cultivator was enraged. With a sweep of his divine sense, he found that apart from a dozen or so sword-nurturing swordsmen who had been killed, almost all the other sword-nurturing swordsmen had managed to escape from the cultivator's hands and were flying towards the Wind Dream Mountain range. Chase! Without waiting for the Foundation-building cultivator to give the order, all the cultivators channeled their transcendence energy and used their flying techniques to chase after the swordsmen. However, before they could chase for more than 10 li, the distance between them widened. A cultivator's flying technique still couldn't compare to a swordsman's flying sword. Apart from a few middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators with higher cultivation, the rest of the cultivators had already fallen far behind. Damn it! The leading Foundation establishment cultivator cursed under his breath. His body slightly stopped, and he was just about to give the order to stop. But at this moment, he saw the swordsman who was flying desperately in front of him suddenly stop. With a cheer he flew back. This is bad. The Foundation establishment cultivator was shocked and hurriedly released his divine sense. When he understood what was going on, he turned pale with fright. This is a giant? On the flying swords of the mini-sword cultivators, apart from the swordsman, there was also a burly man who was twice as tall as the swordsman. These burly men were almost naked. On top of their heads, there was a large black braid that extended from their heads to their waists. These burly men's bodies were shiny and glossy. Under the sunlight, they actually gave off a strange glow. Run! Although the Foundation establishment cultivator couldn't be sure if these giants were powerful, when he saw the swordsman turn around to face them, he naturally knew that the swordsman had a card up his sleeve. Why would he still fight them head-on? With a low roar, he hurriedly ordered the cultivators to retreat. However, it was easy to chase after them, but difficult to escape. Although the swordsman had the giant with him, his speed was only slightly slower than before. In just half a meal's worth of time, he had caught up with the cultivators. Kill! The giant behind senior brother Xiang roared and also flew up. Moreover, its speed wasn't very slow as it flew towards the leading Foundation Establishment Cultivator. Go! Although the Foundation Establishment Cultivator saw the giant swinging its fist towards him, he didn't dare to be careless. With a point of his finger, the pagoda flew out again and smashed towards the giant. Facing the might of the pagoda and the force and suction of the pagoda, the giant wasn't afraid at all. With a loud bang, the giant's fist smashed onto the pagoda. Moreover, it was at the spot that the swordsman had damaged earlier. With a crack, the crack widened. On the giant's fist, a white mark flashed. Then, with a flash of light, the mark gradually disappeared. The giant wasn't injured at all. No, you're not a giant. Gradually, the cultivator came to a realization. You're a weapon cultivator. Ha ha ha. I am a weapon cultivator. All of you should quickly hand over your lives. The giant laughed loudly, as if his trick had succeeded. His entire body suddenly shrank. When he was the size of a cultivator, he began to chant an inexplicable incantation. The weapon cultivator's body began to emit a bronze light. As the light spread out, the weapon cultivator's body began to change. A weapon that looked like a dagger axe appeared in midair. However, this dagger axe had the shape of a human. At the tip of the dagger axe, a pair of eyes could be faintly seen. Whoosh! The weapon cultivator that had turned into a weapon swayed. Like a fish swimming in water, it quickly pierced towards the Foundation Establishment Cultivator. On the dagger axe, an endless murderous intent was emitted. It was as if the Foundation Establishment Cultivator couldn't escape even if he flew into the sky. What a pain! The Foundation Establishment Cultivator cried out in his heart. He understood that the weapon cultivators of the Huan country were the strangest. They used their own flesh and blood to nourish the weapon. Not only did they have the toughness of a weapon, they also had the alertness and divine sense of a person. Their cultivation was so profound that they almost had the power of a spiritual weapon. It wouldn't be easy for him to win with this pagoda. However, the Foundation Establishment Cultivator scanned with his divine sense. The sword cultivator that he had just defeated was already guarding behind him. Even if he wanted to escape, he had no way out. Let's fight. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the pagoda. Wung wung, with a sorrowful cry, the bronze color of the pagoda was smeared with a layer of bleak blood. An extremely strong suction force was generated. With the Foundation Establishment Cultivator's control, the pagoda spiraled towards the dagger axe. The dagger axe was even stranger. It actually let out a hearty laugh. As the whirlpool of suction force spun rapidly, it counteracted the suction force of the pagoda, while also growing sharp barbs at the end of the dagger axe. With a ringing sound, the dagger axe and the pagoda collided. The seemingly huge pagoda was actually sent flying by the long and thin dagger axe. Moreover, the cracks that were already there just now widened, almost piercing through half of the pagoda. If there were no accidents, the pagoda would definitely be split into two after another collision. Give me your life. The dagger axe didn't give the Foundation Establishment Cultivator a second chance. The dagger axe followed the direction of the pagoda and suddenly extended again. Its sharp head was like a long sword, piercing towards the Foundation Establishment Cultivator, whose primordial spirit had been greatly damaged. The Foundation Establishment Cultivator naturally had to defend. He formed a spell, and a semicircular shield appeared in midair, blocking the dagger axe. But it was only for an instant. With a cracking sound, the shield was shattered by the dagger axe, and the dagger axe approached again. Just as the Foundation Establishment Cultivator was about to take out his weapon again, he heard the sound of a flying sword piercing through the air behind him. He didn't need to release his spiritual will to know that Senior Xiang was about to kill him. Thus he channeled his mana, and his body suddenly descended, trying to avoid the attack of the dagger axe and the flying sword. However, the flying sword was fast and accurate, and the dagger axe was the weapon cultivator's body. How could he block its flying speed? Just as he descended a few feet, the flying sword and dagger axe had already changed direction. One from the front and one from the back. They were about to pierce his body. My life is over. Only now did the Foundation Establishment Cultivator realize the true power of a sword cultivator, and a weapon cultivator. He sighed in his heart and closed his eyes, waiting for death. Don't you dare hurt the disciples of the Utopia faction. With a roar, a human figure descended from the sky. This cultivator had snow-white hair, a blood-red robe, and cold eyes without a trace of emotion. The only thing that came out of his mouth was to follow his heart. Following the roar, 2 3-foot-long, yellow whips split into 2 and attacked the Daggerax and the swordsman respectively. Pointless Dao sect, how long can you bluff like this? The weapon cultivator didn't care at all and sneered disdainfully. He opened his mouth and spat out a faint golden light, blocking the whip shadows. This weapon cultivator could actually spit out golden chi. The golden chi turned into a disc and floated in the air. However, when the whip shadow, which looked no different from a real magic treasure, hit the gold chi, there was a pung sound similar to that of a gong, and the gold chi was immediately shattered. The whip shadows didn't stop and directly hit the weapon cultivator's shoulder. With a loud bang, a cluster of sparks splashed out from the equipment cultivator's shoulder. Then, a burst of golden brilliance flourished. That golden brilliance quickly spread all over the Daggerax's body, and a layer of cracks as thin as spider silk spread out along with the brilliance at the same time. The brilliance gradually disappeared. The weapon cultivator could no longer maintain the Daggerax's form and gradually reverted to his human form. At this time, there was clearly some fear in the weapon cultivator's eyes. The arrogance from before had long disappeared. The weapon cultivator was beaten back to his original form by the whip, but the sword cultivator didn't have it easy either. The sword cultivator saw that the whip shadows hadn't reached him yet, but the fierce spiritual power on the whip shadows, as well as the strong force contained in the wind, attacked first. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright. He didn't have the tyrannical defensive power of a weapon cultivator, and didn't dare to take it head-on. He formed a sword seal in his hand, and the flying sword stabbed horizontally at the whip shadows. Almost at the same time as the weapon cultivator was hit, there was a whoosh sound. The flying sword was hit by the whip shadows. Broken light flashed on the flying sword, and fine cracks suddenly appeared. Pooh, the sword cultivator's flying sword was damaged, and his primordial spirit was also seriously injured. This guy was already injured before, but this time it was even more serious. He spat out a mouthful of blood and waved his hand. The flying sword fell into his hand. He looked at it with heartache, but he saw that the incomparably hard flying sword was now full of cracks. If it was hit again, it would definitely shatter into pieces. Chapter 2247. Let's go. The sword cultivator glanced over, and spat a mouthful of sword energy into his flying sword. The sword cultivator's spirit followed the sword, and he wanted to escape. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? The white-haired cultivator said coldly. He raised his hand and a long 9-section bamboo whip appeared out of thin air. The 9-section whip was pale golden color. Starting from the handle, each section was shorter than the previous one. Between each section of the bamboo, there were complicated talismans flashing. Even the bamboo sections were faintly flowing with mysterious talismans. Break. After the white-haired cultivator finished speaking, he dragged the bamboo whip without hesitation. A whip shadow was born from the bamboo whip. It was like a coquettish golden dragon, flashing with intense light. A sharp hurricane seemed to tear the void apart as it slashed towards the sword cultivator. The sword cultivator's flying speed was extremely fast. In a moment, he had already flown a few feet. However, the whip shadow was even faster and struck the sword cultivator like lightning. Ka-cha-cha. The sword cultivator's body flashed a few times before it was annihilated. The flying sword under the sword cultivator's feet was smashed into pieces, and the sword cultivator's body was also smashed into several pieces. Senior Li Zongbao? The Foundation Establishment cultivator, who had closed his eyes and waited for death, did not see it coming. When he heard the sound of weapons colliding, he opened his eyes and saw the white-haired cultivator. He was extremely surprised and said, Why are you here? This white-haired cultivator was actually Li Zongbao, a disciple of the Utmost Happiness faction, who practiced the leeching treasure mirror. Li Zongbao's gaze swept over the cultivator who was about to cry from joy. He only responded and dragged the bamboo whip again. He activated his mana and waved it. Like waves, the whip shadow smashed towards the weapon cultivator, who was also fleeing in panic. Rumble. The whip shadow fell, and there was the sound of wind and thunder. The weapon cultivator's expression changed greatly. As he spat out golden gas, he tried his best to block the whip shadow. At the same time, his body glowed. Not only did his speed suddenly increase, but the magic weapon form of his long spear also rapidly appeared. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the overwhelming number of whip shadows smashed onto the artifact cultivator's body. Every whip shadow would make a loud sound, and after every loud sound, the artifact cultivator's body would fall a few feet. In the end, the weapon cultivator was actually smashed into the ground by the whip shadow. Boom. The deep pit that the equipment cultivator had fallen into seemed to explode as countless golden lights rushed out. Furthermore, the golden lights were mixed with some bloody lights. After the sound was heard, he looked at the deep pit again. There was only a long spear lying at the bottom of the pit, and there were traces of blood and minced meat around it. The tool cultivator had actually been smashed to pieces by Li Zongbao's bamboo whip. The Foundation establishment cultivator from the Utopia faction sucked in a breath of cold air. Of course, he had heard of Li Zongbao's reputation, but Li Zongbao had never made a move in a fight between fellow faction members. He had never imagined that Li Zongbao would be so powerful now. Although his cultivation level was only at the peak of the middle Foundation establishment stage, his strength was close to the peak of the late Foundation establishment stage. Isn't this immortal piercing whip a little too powerful? The Foundation establishment cultivator was secretly jealous. What are you waiting for? Li Zongbao glared at the Foundation establishment cultivator, but his figure did not stop. He flew up and pounced towards the equipment cultivator on the other side. His pure white hair fluttered in the air and scattered mercilessly. Yes, I understand. The Foundation establishment cultivator's heart trembled. He moved his body and hurriedly went to help the other disciples. Li Zongbao was as ferocious as a tiger in a flock of sheep. Although the equipment cultivator's defense was incomparably powerful, and the sword cultivator's attack was also unparalleled, under his merciless immortal piercing whip, there was almost no one who could withstand more than 3 moves. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, not only did he reverse the previous decline of the Taoist faction, but he also killed more than 10 equipment cultivators and sword cultivators. The remaining equipment cultivators saw that things were not going well. With a whistle, they fled in all directions under the lead of the sword cultivator. Seeing the sword cultivators flee, Li Zongbao narrowed his eyes and a faint red light flashed across his face. Immediately after, the sleeves of his Taoist robe suddenly swelled up. The immortal piercing whip in his hand swung in midair, and drew a semicircle. More than 10 whip shadows flew out and chased after the sword cultivators in all directions. Li Zongbao actually wanted to kill all these sword cultivators. Bang bang bang, a series of sounds could be heard. The immortal piercing whip had caught up with the sword cultivators, but after all, they were too far away. Except for one sword cultivator who was killed by the whip shadows in midair. The rest of the sword cultivators and equipment cultivators all used their flying swords to block the whip shadows. They staggered in the air for a while, and with a faint flash of light on their bodies, they continued to flee. You guys got lucky. At this time, the red light on Li Zongbao's face receded, and was replaced by a slightly pale face. With a wave of his hand, he kept the immortal piercing whip in his storage bag. With a clap of his hand, he took out a pill and popped it into his mouth. The immortal piercing whip was a powerful magic weapon. Li Zongbao had used it to kill so many sword cultivators and equipment cultivators, but the magic power in his body was showing signs of drying up. Thank you, Senior Brotherly. Many cultivators of the Utopia faction who had escaped with their lives were overjoyed. They stepped forward and bowed to pay their respects. Li Zongbao looked at these disciples indifferently and ordered, I was just passing by this place. I received your message charm and rushed over. All of you, clean up this place and quickly gather at the nearest stronghold. Yes, we understand. When the disciples heard that Li Zongbao wanted them to clean up the mess, they were overjoyed and smiled apologetically. Senior Brotherly, where are you going? Why are there so many storage bags of the sword cultivators and equipment cultivators left behind? Do you want to take a look? I am under orders to go to the Sky Patrol City. Li Zhongbao's tone was still indifferent. What use do we have for these sword cultivators and equipment cultivators? You can take them all. After that, he flew up into the sky and headed in the direction of the Sky Patrol City. TSK looking at Li Zhongbao flying away without stopping. The Foundation Establishment cultivator who had previously held the pagoda said enviously, "Senior brother Li Zhongbao is indeed a famous cultivator in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. How many years has it been since you built your foundation? Now you have already cultivated to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment? I'm afraid you can break through the late stage of foundation establishment at any time. Even the golden core is in sight. Alas, we can't compare with senior brother Li Zhongbao." Another cultivator who was also in the middle stage of foundation establishment side. Senior brother Li is a young talent. He has been famous since he was young. His talent is rare in the entire Xiaoyu continent. He is martial uncle Heng Ming's favorite disciple. Now with the Utopia faction's famous magic weapon, his strength is close to the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. Exactly. I'm afraid martial uncle Li Zhongbao is the strongest cultivator below the golden core. And Qi refining disciple whispered with admiration. Yes, it should be about the same. The foundation establishment cultivator, who held the pagoda nodded. These weapon cultivators and sword cultivators are extremely powerful in both defense and attack. However, they are no match for senior brother Li. This is basically the strength of a golden core cultivator. If senior brother Li Zhongbao is the strongest cultivator below the golden core, he definitely deserves it. I'm afraid no other foundation establishment cultivator in the entire 3 kingdoms of cultivation can match him. But another Qi refining disciple whispered, "Isn't martial uncle Li very young? Why does he have a head full of white hair?" This a foundation establishment cultivator hesitated and said, "I've heard from my teacher that senior brother Li once led a team to the Taiqing sect to participate in the feather deity meet. I don't know what happened, but his hair turned white overnight. Since that day, his cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds, far surpassing his previous cultivation speed. No one in the Utopia faction can match him. Martial uncle Li seems disdainful to be with us," the Qi refining disciple asked again. The foundation establishment cultivator glared at him and said coldly, "What do you know? I've heard that senior brother Li Zhongbao seems to be practicing the famous parting mirror of the Utopia faction. It has a heart like iron, emotions like steel, and Tao like the heavens." My goodness, it's so powerful? Tao like the heavens? The Qi refining disciple was speechless again. Of course, the heavenly Tao is ruthless. If you want to have a profound cultivation, you naturally have to cut off your emotions in order to be close to the heavenly Tao. The parting mirror of the Utopia faction is known to be the cultivation method closest to the heavenly Tao. Then in the end, won't he lose his emotions? Then is he still human? Of course not. He's a celestial. A celestial who can destroy the heavens and earth with a wave of his hand. The foundation establishment cultivator replied snappily. Do you think the parting mirror of the Utopia faction is a cultivation method that mortals can practice? Even if that cultivation method is placed in front of you, you may not be able to understand or comprehend it at all. Let's go, several people said as they collected the storage bags, flying swords, and broken magic weapons scattered around them. Then they flew toward the nearest stronghold of the Utopia faction. On the Xiaoyu continent, the Huan Kingdom, the Shi Kingdom, and the Lian Kingdom bordered each other for tens of thousands of miles. In such a vast territory, there were fierce battles every day. Although there were many casualties among sword cultivators and weapon cultivators, there were even more Taoist faction disciples. Especially those Qi refining disciples. When they encountered the strange attacks of sword cultivators and weapon cultivators, they were not suitable for them and died one after another. Of course, after nearly a year of fighting, there were also some disciples at the peak of the Qi refining stage who broke through the bottleneck and set foot on the foundation establishment stage. These new foundation establishment cultivators were naturally sent back to their respective sects. However, it was said that people's opportunities were not the same. Among these new foundation establishment cultivators, many of them had reached the foundation establishment stage while fighting. They were directly faced with fierce sword cultivators and weapon cultivators. Before they could really reach the foundation establishment stage, the flying swords and magic weapons would reach them. Before they could feel joy in their hearts, they were killed. Even if their senior brothers or uncle masters wanted to save them, it was too late. Under such circumstances, the disciples in charge of many sects in the meeting hall of the Sky Patrol City naturally had to send more manpower. The second batch of disciples, including the Imperial Thunder sect, and the third batch of disciples from the cultivation families were also urged to send to the battlefront. Moreover, Xiao Hua and the others flew forward for more than 10 days. They only saw the vast snowy wilderness and mountains everywhere. They did not see any abnormalities, nor did they see any sword cultivators attacking them. Xiao Hua, whose cultivation had been steadily improving, unconsciously came to a realization. Damn it, actually this easy is not much different from cultivating in seclusion. Now it's only the first stage of the war. The nascent soul stage cultivators and high-level sword cultivators have not come out. Isn't this war my world? Why should I be afraid of them? I can deal with them at will. Should I also make a name for myself? Chapter 2248. At this moment, a divine sense swept over from behind Xiao Hua. Once discovered, the divine sense immediately locked onto them. This sword cultivator actually attacked from behind me? Xiao Hua was astonished and hurriedly released his Buddhist perception. When he saw clearly, a pensive expression flashed across his face. Quick, Xiao Hua, quickly fly to the foothills in front. Xiao Hua heard Dui Qiming's call. We'll meet the enemy there. Yes, Xiao Hua replied, but he wasn't in a hurry to fly forward. I heard eldest senior brother say that your flying speed is very fast. Why are you so slow? Seeing that Xiao Hua wasn't flying fast, Cui Hongshan couldn't help but feel anxious. However, before Xiao Hua could fly to the foothills, a small brown dot faintly appeared in the distant sky. When it flew into the range of everyone's divine sense, everyone's faces unconsciously relaxed. As it turned out, it was actually a small flowing cloud flying ship. It was precisely the Seven Skills sect's disciples. Since it was a Dao sect disciple, no matter which sect he was from, the Imperial Thunder sect disciples didn't need to be afraid. Thus, Cui Hongshan waved his hand, and Xiao Hua and the other disciples stayed where they were. He and Zhen Minghui flew into the air to meet them. The flying magic tool was indeed fast. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, they arrived in front of them. When the flowing cloud flying ship stopped, a mid-foundation establishment old man led two early foundation establishment middle-aged men down from the flying ship. His gaze swept across Cui Hongshan, then looked at the people hiding at the foothills. He cupped his hands and said, "This old man was wondering who it was. So it's fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder sect. Nice to meet you." Although this old man came, he didn't take the initiative to announce his name. It was obvious that he disdained Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui's cultivation. Cui Hongshan didn't get angry and cupped his hands in greeting. "This one is Cui Hongshan, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect's Thunder Palace. I'm the captain of the Imperial Thunder sect's first team. This is my first team's vice captain, Zhen Minghui. May I know what fellow Taoists from the Seven Skills sect are here for?" "Oh, the Imperial Thunder sect's first team?" The old man's face unconsciously revealed a trace of surprise. Ha ha ha, an early foundation establishment disciple actually dares to lead the Imperial Thunder sect's first team. A dark-skinned middle-aged man didn't even try to hide his ridicule and actually shouted out. "Now that I've received the heavy responsibility of being a teacher, I dare not refuse this heavy responsibility, just because my cultivation is low. I will do my best to complete the task entrusted to me by my teacher." Cui Hongshan replied in a manner that was neither haughty nor humble. "Junior brother Ho, how can you be so rude?" The old man glanced sideways at the young cultivator and whispered, "Every sect has their own difficulties. How can the Imperial Thunder sect compare to our Seven Skills sect? Without a high-level cultivator, It's normal for an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator to be the captain of the first squad. Damn it. Hidden at the foot of the mountain, Xiaohua was displeased. He could belittle Cui Hongshan at will, but Cui Hongshan was, after all, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect's myriad Thunder Valley. Xiaohua didn't want others to look down on him. Although this middle Foundation establishment old man didn't directly say anything about Cui Hongshan, he actually belittled the entire Imperial Thunder Sect. His tone was even more unbearable than that middle-aged cultivator's. Yes, I understand. The middle-aged cultivator hastily lowered his head and took half a step back. I was only thinking about the 7 Possibilities sect. I didn't think about the Imperial Thunder Sect. The old man waved his hand, then turned to Cui Hongshan and said, I'm Han Bing from the 7 Possibilities sect. I'm the captain of the 132nd squad of the 7 Possibilities sect. I'm very happy to see Captain Cui. May I know why Captain Cui is here? Cui Hongshan's thoughts were different from Xiaohua's. After all, the other party was a middle Foundation establishment cultivator. He was a small realm lower than the other party, so there was nothing much to say. After thinking for a moment, he smiled apologetically and said, I've received orders from my master to head to Foul Crow Mountain for some business. May I know why Captain Han is here? Oh, you're going to Foul Crow Mountain? Han Bing was stunned, then asked, You've been waiting for a message from Foul Crow Mountain? Cui Hongshan was even more stunned, then nodded and said, That's right. Our Imperial Thunder Sect was heading to Sky Patrol City, but we received a message halfway. That's why our master hurriedly dispatched our first squad. Oh, so that's how the first squad came to be. Han Bing came to a realization and said with a smile, You don't have to go to Foul Crow Mountain. The cultivators of your Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad are too weak. They won't be of any use. Furthermore, Foul Crow Mountain isn't a big deal. We're heading there anyway. Cui Hongshan was stunned. He didn't expect Han Bing to say that. Besides, we're taking the flowing cloud flying ship, which is several times faster than you. By the time your Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad reaches Foul Crow Mountain, the cucumber will be cold. What are you waiting for? The middle-aged cultivator who had been silent all this while said with a smile. He was also belittling the Imperial Thunder Sect. Furthermore, this cultivator looked at the flowing cloud flying ship behind him and seemed to be talking to himself. Besides, our 7 Skills Sect's flowing cloud flying ship isn't refined well. It can only seat 10 people, no more. When I return, I'll inform the sect of this shortcoming. We must improve it. Cui Hongshan's face turned a little pale. The Imperial Thunder Sect's thunder ship was famous in the Dawn Rain continent, but the problem was that they didn't have a small thunder ship. Even if there was a thunder ship, early Foundation establishment cultivators couldn't control it. Besides, 7 Skills Sect was a refining sect. The Imperial Thunder Sect couldn't compare. Seeing that Cui Hongshan's expression wasn't right, Han Bing was in an extremely good mood. He cupped his hands and said, Captain Cui, this old man will leave first. After all, there's a reason for Foul Crow Mountain to send a message. You'd better return home and hurry to Sky Patrol City. There are more important matters there. Farewell. After saying that, he turned and flew onto the flowing cloud flying ship without waiting for Cui Hongshan's reply. The other 2 middle-aged Foundation establishment cultivators didn't even report their names to the Imperial Thunder Sect, and left just like that. Captain Cui. After the 7 Skills Sect's flowing cloud flying ship flew away, Zhen Minghui looked hesitant. He frowned and stared at the distant horizon. The flowing cloud flying ship had already disappeared into the vast snowfield. He asked, Are we still going to Foul Crow Mountain? Why not? Cui Hongshan's eyes flashed with a strange light as he asked. The 7 Skills Sect's disciples have a higher cultivation than us. Besides, they have flying Dharma artifacts so they can leave quickly. By the time we get there, the matter will be over. Why should we go? Zhen Minghui stammered. Didn't senior brother Zhen Yun say that there's no big deal in Foul Crow Mountain? They just felt that our Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples' flying speed is fast, so they let us go. Hee Vice Captain Zhen. Cui Hongshan laughed. You're the vice captain of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team, and a disciple of the sect. How can a 7 skills sex mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator decide where our first team goes? Even if we're late, we'll still have to go. Besides, isn't it better for the 7 skills sex disciples to lead the way for us? Yes, I understand. Zhen Minghui looked ashamed. It was easy for him to submit to someone with a higher cultivation, to follow Han Bing's orders without hesitation. It was only when Cui Hongshan spoke that he understood. It was also at this moment that he finally called himself a subordinate for the first time. Then I'll lead the way, Zhen Minghui said respectfully to Cui Hongshan, and was about to fly in front like before. However, Cui Hongshan laughed and said, "No need. Since the 7 skills sex disciples are in front of us, why should we be afraid of sword cultivators? We can just go straight ahead." Yes, I understand. Zhen Minghui nodded and called out Xiao Hua and the rest. The 10 of them continued forward. Of course, for safety's sake, Zhen Minghui continued to fly in front. After flying for another 10 days, a hint of green could be seen in the vast snowy plains. From time to time, some tender green could be seen in the pure white veins. It was actually some spiritual trees. There were even some sprouts that were like new shoots emerging from the snow. Chicken Crow Mountain is in front. On this day, when they flew to a glacier, Cui Hongshan pointed to a strange mountain peak in the distance and said, "We'll reach it in half a day. Let's rest for a while." Yes. Zhen Minghui was the first to respond. After 10 days, they had already formed a tacit understanding. Zhen Minghui stopped and used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. His gaze landed on a depression in the glacier. He saw that the glacier was very wide. It was probably several hundred feet wide. The sparkling and translucent ice layer covered the entire glacier. Just a few li in front of them, the water flowing down the slope also froze into ice. The rhythm of the river water jumping and splashing was vividly frozen. It really had a kind of beauty that combined movement and stillness. Even if one used the naked eye to see through the layer of ice, one could still faintly see the rapidly flowing waves. One could even hear the hua-hua sound in one's ears. Stepping on the solid layer of ice, who would have thought that there was a roaring world below? "Captain Cui, can you take out the cold wind? We'll go over and rest for a while. We'll take some medicinal pills and adjust our breathing for a while," Zhen Minghui asked softly. "Okay, please lead the way, Senior Marshal Brother Minghui." Cui Hongshan never refuted Zhen Minghui's opinions and nodded very gently. After Dui Qiming and the rest flew over the glacier with Su Qing, Dui Ling landed on the ice layer of the glacier. She looked down curiously at the solid ice under her feet and shouted happily, "Xiao Hua, quickly come and take a look. Have you seen such thick ice before? There's water under the ice, and the water flow is very rapid." During these dozens of days, Dui Ling and Xiao Hua flew at the back. Dui Ling would nag at Xiao Hua whenever she had nothing to do. He even treated Xiao Hua's entry into the Imperial Thunder sect as if he had single-handedly arranged it. It was as if he hadn't discovered Xiao Hua that day, Xiao Hua would have been buried. Moreover, this was Dui Ling's first time coming to this world of ice and snow. Naturally, she was very happy and couldn't help but call out to Xiao Hua, "Little girl." Xiao Hua's figure was still on the other side of the glacier. She lazily replied, "What's the difference between looking and not looking? If you look, it's still flowing. If you don't look, it's still flowing. What's the difference between this and the flowing water of the Imperial Thunder sect? Why are you so boring?" How could Dui Ling understand the profoundness in her words? She pouted, stomped her feet, and bent her body down. Her eyes were almost touching the ice layer. There's a big fish inside. And a crab? No, this. As she spoke, Dui Ling actually looked a little flustered and almost screamed. Following Dui Ling's scream, her figure immediately flew into the air, trying to escape. Just as her figure left the ice layer, there was a loud pung sound. The thick layer of ice that was as solid as a boulder suddenly burst open. Large chunks of ice were overturned, and ice fragments rushed into the air. A disc-shaped figure emitting a green brilliance rushed out from the ice layer. 2 balls of light whizzed towards Dui Ling's body. Long before Dui Ling screamed, Xiao Hua had already released her spiritual sense. She saw a crab with green light waving its large pincers rushing out from the ice layer. Dui Ling was probably the one who cried out in surprise. Seeing that the crab's strength was only around the qi refinement realm, Xiaohua didn't care. She didn't move and only watched indifferently with her arms crossed. Chapter 2249. Junior Sister Diu, don't panic. Xiaohua didn't care, but someone else did. Bai Sugu, who had just flown over the ice layer, let out a low shout. He slapped his storage pouch, and a foot-long fiery red stick flew out. Go. Bai Sugu urged his transcendence energy, and a circle of flames quickly lingered around the stick. It was Bai Sugu's fire-congealing pillar. Although Bai Sugu's fire-congealing pillar was fast, it still couldn't compare to the green crab. Dui Ling had just flown a few feet when the green crab's claws had already caught up to her figure. With a kacha sound, the claws cut towards Dui Ling's waist like lightning. Although Dui Ling was in the qi refinement realm and didn't have much experience, he still had a natural reaction. With a wave of his hand, many fireball talismans, lightning talismans, and other talismans were scattered. With a rumble and kachacha sound, they all hit the crab's body. However, these fireballs and lightning only blocked the crab's claws, slightly delaying the attack. The green brilliance on the crab's hardshell flashed, and all the attacks were ineffective. Not a single hair on the crab was harmed. Seeing the crab's claws only slightly delayed and were about to cut at her slender waist, Dui Ling panicked and shouted, "Xiaohua, quickly come and save me." Xiaohua stood in the distance, blinking his eyes. A strange smile appeared on his face, but his figure didn't move at all. He only stood quietly in midair, without the slightest intention of stepping forward to help. Dui Ling was helpless. He fiercely urged his transcendence energy, and his originally fast-dodging figure sped up again. With a kacha sound, the green crab's claws cut at Dui Ling's waist. Dui Ling's body emitted a thunderous sound, and a resplendent brilliance appeared at his waist, blocking the green crab's claws. Xiaohua's eyes flashed with an expression as expected. He had long seen that Dui Ling was wearing a defensive transcendent artifact. Although this transcendent artifact couldn't compare to Qian Dihing's, it was more than enough to deal with a first-grade spirit beast like the green crab. However, just as the brilliance blocked the green crab, a green light suddenly flashed on the green crab's claws. With a qi sound, that defensive brilliance was actually cut through by the green crab's claws. Ouch! Xiaohua was stunned. At the same time, a strange light flashed in his eyes. This green light is very familiar. Isn't this the Tai green light in my dream executioner? Although the light was faint, the sharpness of the innate gold qi was unmistakable. He was actually able to break through the brilliance of the defensive magic treasure. Of course, the green crab had only managed to break through a tiny flaw in Dui Ling's defensive magic treasure. At this moment, Baisu Valley's fire-congealing pillar had already flown over. Several feet of flames raged as it pounced towards the green crab. Hiss! No one knew where the sound came from, but a cluster of misty green light flew out of the green crab's stomach and covered the fiery condensing pillar, knocking down the several feet of fire. Only half a foot of fire was left on the fiery condensing pillar, like a bandage. Die. At this time, Dui Ling had already recovered from his panic. He clapped his hands, and a palm-sized seal flew out from his storage bag. With the activation of Dui Ling's magic power, it flashed with tiny lightning bolts and smashed towards the green crab. Woo! Green light flew out of the green crab's stomach again, wanting to extinguish the lightning bolts. Dai la la la, a burst of lightning bolts lingered. The sharp Tai green light was indeed powerful. Half of the lightning bolts on Dui Ling's magic treasure, the thunder seal, were instantly destroyed by the green light. However, the green crab extinguished the lightning bolts, and the thunder seal's momentum did not change at all. It still smashed towards the back of the green crab. Seeing that the thunder seal was about to hit the green crab, Dui Ling's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Quickly withdraw the thunder seal. At this time, Dui Qiming's voice rang in Dui Ling's ears. Ah, why? Dui Ling was slightly dazed, but he knew that Dui Qiming's warning must be strange. He hurriedly activated his magic power and formed hand seals to withdraw the thunder seal. However, he was still half a step too late. The green light on the green crab's body spread out, and the crab claws slashed towards the sky, actually cutting towards the thunder seal. A faint sound rang out. The green light cut through the thunder seal, and a shallow imprint flashed on the thunder seal. The thunder seal's lightning bolts were extinguished a little more. Dui Ling was extremely distressed and shocked. He did not expect the green crab's crab claws to actually cut through the thunder seal. Boom! Baisugu's fire-congealing pillar flourished with flames again, and several fire dragons pounced towards the green crab. The green crab had no choice but to abandon Dui Ling. The green light under its abdomen reappeared, and it pounced towards the fire dragons. At this time, everyone had already flown back and stopped around Dui Ling and Baisugu. Like Xiaohua, they were shocked when they saw the green crab, but they immediately relaxed. They only released their divine senses to check the green crab's movements and instructed Baisugu and Dui Ling to join forces to fight the green crab. It was as if they were training the two of them. After a while, Zhenhua also could not hold back. He slapped his hand, and the magic treasure, Thunder Confining Bead, also flew into the air. The sparkling blue lightning bolts flickered and struck towards the back of the green crab. With a loud pung, the Thunder Confining Bead avoided the crab claws and hit the back of the green crab. The green crab's shell still flashed with green light, and there was not the slightest mark left on it. However, faint streaks of lightning remained on the green crab's body, causing it to tremble for a while. Taking advantage of this, the green crab's crab claws turned and cut towards the Thunder Confining Bead. Dui Ling pointed his finger, and the thunder seal also struck down, hitting the front half of the green crab in an instant. A burst of green light flashed, and there were actually some sparks splashing out. The green crab's body swayed twice in midair, and it almost lost its balance. Seeing that it could not gain any advantage, the green crab, who was already surrounded by everyone, finally put away its fearless in the face of danger calmness. Its body swayed slightly, and it was about to fall into the ice layer. "Don't let it escape," Zhen Minghui shouted. "This is the advantage of my Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. Kill this bastard to get the first prize." Okay. Hearing this, Cui Hongshan was also very interested. He clapped his hands, and two thunder beads, one big and one small, flew out. Like meteors catching up with the moon, they fell below the green crab, and suddenly rushed towards the green crab's abdomen. Woo! With a burst of ear-piercing sound, the two thunder beads actually made an ear-piercing sound. Pooh! The green crab's abdomen spat out a large cluster of tiny green light, wanting to extinguish the two thunder beads. But the moment the tiny green light fell, the two thunder beads slightly collided. With a caw sound, a bolt of lightning was born from the thunder beads' contact, piercing the green light like a sharp sword, and the two thunder beads took advantage of the collision to fly in opposite directions. This bastard's technique of controlling a celestial artifact is not bad. Only Xiaohua was still standing in the distance, calmly watching with his Buddhist awareness. Seeing Cui Hongshan's method, he could not help but sneer. Master and Master's wife only gave me a spirit crowfire net, but this bastard gave me two thunder beads at once. Master is a little biased. While Xiaohua was surprised, Cui Hongshan was also surprised. The lightning was like a sword piercing the green light. According to his thinking, it should have pierced through the green light, and even pierced the green crab's abdomen. Who would have thought that the lightning would actually flicker in the green light and be annihilated? How could he not be surprised? This green crab is a little strange. Zhen Minghui also took out his magic tool at this time. It was not much different from Dui Ling's thunder seal, a square brick. However, in Zhen Minghui's hands, the lightning brick seemed to possess a different kind of power. As Zhen Minghui spoke, the lightning brick suddenly grew in size. It was several feet in size and smashed down like a giant boulder. The poor green crab had just dealt with Cui Hongshan's small ball, and now it had to face Zhen Minghui's brick. Its crab claws streaked through the air, leaving a trace of mark. Before the green crab could be happy, the brick smashed down with a boom, hitting its back. Although the green light of the green crab flashed and blocked the thunder brick, it still fell several feet. The green light protecting the green crab was also somewhat dim. Only a thin layer of protection was left. The poor green crab was only a first-rank spirit beast. How could it withstand the torment of so many foundation establishment cultivators? The corner of Cui Hongshan's mouth curved into a slight smile. He glanced at Dui Qiming and scolded softly. His hand seals changed slightly, and the two thunder beads that had just separated drew two beautiful arcs under the green crab's abdomen and converged close to the green crab. With a kacha sound, another thunder light was born. This thunder light was 10% larger than the previous one, and it was incomparably fast. Before the green light of the green crab could be released, the thunder light had already hit the green light protecting the green crab. Rip, like piercing through a layer of silk, the thunder light tore the green light apart and hit the green crab's abdomen. The green crab's abdomen should be its weak point. The green crab's two crab claws violently waved, and an inch-sized black hole appeared with green smoke. The green crab was injured, and its sinking speed was even faster. Still want to escape? Zhen Minghui was somewhat regretful. He secretly blamed himself for not thinking of attacking the green crab's abdomen earlier. He pointed his finger, and the thunder brick also flew down and hit the green crab. However, just as the thunder brick flew down, the green crab had already landed on the layer of ice. It was about to sink into the big hole that it had just charged out of. Quick Chiu-Su, who had been motionless all this time, pointed his finger. The Dharma artifact that he had set up above the ice hole long ago flew up. It was a thunder net. Seeing the flickering thunder net completely wrap around the green crab, everyone was a little embarrassed. It took a few foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators to capture the green crab with so much effort. Just as Chiu-Su was about to form a seal to capture the green crab, two rays of green light flashed out from the green crab's crab claws and cut a part of the thunder net at the same time. The green light was so sharp that it flashed and cut a big hole in the thunder net. The green crab was about to fall into the ice hole very easily. Ouch, Chiu-Su exclaimed. He knew that he had underestimated the green light. Fortunately, Zhen Minghui's thunder brick flew over in time and smashed at the spot where Cui Hongshan's thunder pearl had hit. With a pu sound, the thunder brick actually sank into it. The green crab's crab claws trembled a few times, and the green light around its body gradually disappeared. Congratulations, senior brother Minghui, for killing it with one strike. Cui Hongshan's thunder pearl flew over at the same time. Seeing that the green crab had been killed by Zhen Minghui, he waved his hand and the thunder pearl flew back to him. Chapter 2250. No, it's all thanks to Captain Cui. If Captain hadn't found this monster's weakness, I'm afraid it would have escaped. Zhen Minghui put away the thunder brick and waved his hand. The huge green crab corpse flew into the air and floated in front of everyone. He said, "This green crab's green light is very strange. It's really powerful." Clap, 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 clap. Xiaohua's slightly sarcastic praise sounded. Really powerful. This Xiao admires you very much. A first-grade spirit beast with the strength of chi refinement. So many people actually took action. Really powerful. Shut up. Cui Hongshan scolded angrily. Didn't you see that Dui Ling was in danger, and even asked you for help? You didn't do anything? Are you still a man? Whether I'm a man or not, you don't need to know. Xiaohua sneered. Isn't a chi refinement spirit beast a good opportunity for her to practice? If you all killed it, she would be helpless the next time she sees a spirit beast. What good would it do her? Besides, you clearly knew that this green crab's green light was strange, so why did you kill it? If you found where the green crab came from, wouldn't you be able to get more green light? This Cui Hongshan was stunned by Xiaohua's words. Xiaohua's words were extremely reasonable. Can you guarantee that Dui Ling won't be injured? Zhen Minghui also chimed in. Besides, a green crab is so difficult to deal with. There must be a lot under the ice, right? What should we do? Even if you want to follow the green crab to find the green light, do you think you can go deep into the ice river? Everything is just wishful thinking. It's just empty talk. Hee, isn't it? Cui Hongshan also laughed. He couldn't help but think of his master's helpless evaluation of Xiaohua's frivolity. Forget it, Xiaohua. Your thoughts are excellent, but our cultivation is limited. If we can prevent Dui Ling from getting injured, we will try our best not to take risks. If there are such difficulties in the future, don't hesitate. Cui Hongshan waved his hand and looked at the green crab. What is this green light? If we can get it, it will be of great use. This subordinate has never seen or heard of such a sharp green light before. It can actually cut through magical artifacts, and even lightning. It's even more impossible for him to know how to draw it. Zhen Minghui's face was also filled with embarrassment as he looked at Qiu Su. After all, Qiu Su was a disciple of the technique imparting pavilion, so he might have some knowledge. Senior brothers, I don't know either. Qiu Su smiled bitterly. Cui Hongshan's gaze swept across Dui Qiming and the rest. Everyone shook their heads. Forget it, senior brother Minghui, keep this thing for the time being. We'll talk about it when we return to Sky Patrol City and meet our teacher. Cui Hongshan waved his hand and instructed. This. I think Captain Cui should keep it. Zhen Minghui hesitated for a moment before waving his hand. The green crab flew towards Cui Hongshan. Hee, the green crab's green light is powerful. The crab's shell and claws are also abnormally hard. They are all good materials for refining tools. Cui Hongshan glanced at Jinhua and said with a smile, yes, Captain Cui is right. After seeing Cui Hongshan's magic tool, Jinhua also knew that Cui Hongshan was indeed not weak. He felt admiration in his heart and quickly replied. The crab shell is extremely hard and the crab claws are extremely sharp. In the 100 Refinements Hall, it is a rare material for refining. We'll definitely encounter a lot of such rare materials in the future. There's no need to divide it now. When we return to Sky Patrol City, I'll share it with everyone. Cui Hongshan waved his hand and said, Senior brother Minghui, keep it for the time being. We'll remember this. Even if you want to take it, you can't. Alright. Zhen Minghui knew that Cui Hongshan wanted to avoid arousing suspicion. After thinking for a while, he reluctantly nodded. With a wave of his hand, he kept it in his storage bag. Alright, let's take a rest. Cui Hongshan used his divine thought to check for a moment. After confirming that there was no danger, he ordered. Before Dui Ling and the rest could fly up, Xiaohua suddenly said, Fellow Cultivator Cui, I have something to do. Please wait here for a moment. I'll be back soon. After saying that, he turned around and flew back without waiting for Cui Hongshan's reply. Cui Hongshan was slightly angry. He could not figure out what Xiaohua wanted to do. If he wanted to escape, why did he do it earlier? Now he wanted to escape in front of everyone. But if he didn't escape, what couldn't he say clearly? Hee, Captain Cui, your junior brother's temper isn't small. Zhen Minghui seemed to be distressed. He doesn't respect the captain at all. Ai, there's no way. Cui Hongshan sighed again. He's just a junior brother who just entered Foundation establishment. I also received master's instructions. There's nothing I can do. And I also have such a junior brother. Since young he has been doted on by his master. He's rather arrogant, but what happened in the end? He's still in the 11th layer of qi refining. This time he was almost sent out. Zhen Minghui laughed. This junior brother of yours is not bad. He's already entered Foundation establishment. It seems that he also has some knowledge. And Cui Hongshan looked in the direction Xiaohua disappeared. Of course, I will do what I can. If it's beyond the scope of my abilities, I can't do it. Everything will be up to the will of the heavens. Immediately, everyone flew to a low-lying area and took medicinal pills to rest. Dui Ling looked in the direction Xiaohua disappeared in, as if he had lost something. After waiting for nearly the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua finally came back. What did you go to do? Cui Hongshan asked unhappily. You're a member of my team. Even if you're my junior brother, you must explain the reason when you go out. Otherwise, I won't be able to convince everyone. I know. Xiaohua replied unhappily, but he didn't explain what he had gone to do. Xiaohua, come over here. Seeing that Cui Hongshan was about to scold him again, Dui Qiming hurriedly called out. And Xiaohua responded and flew to Dui Qiming and Dui Ling's side. Cui Hongshan looked at the others, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Dui Qiming looked at the lazy Xiaohua and whispered, Xiaohua, senior sister will say something to you. No matter what, Cui Hongshan is already the leader of our team. As his senior brother, you can't undermine him. Even if you have some complaints in your heart, you can't show it on your face. After all, he has to make plans for the 10 of us. You have to endure it for the sake of our lives and your own. Xiao Hua mumbled to himself. Also, Cui Hongshan was right. Even if you want to train Dui Ling, you have to ensure his safety first. How dangerous was it just now? If we didn't intervene, Dui Ling's life would have been long gone, let alone training. Tisk, is it worth it? Xiao Hua wasn't convinced. How could he let the green crab hurt Dui Ling? However, he didn't say anything and continued to mumble. That's right, Xiao Hua. No matter what, I was the one who recruited you to the Imperial Thunder Sect. How could you be so ruthless? Dui Ling whispered with a bitter face. All right. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a jade slip. This Zhao's cultivation is shallow. Even if I intervened, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to save you. Therefore, I had no choice but to not intervene. Since you are so unhappy, this jade slip is this Zhao's apology. Jade slip? What for? Dui Ling was very puzzled, but he still took it and used his weak divine perception to take a look. Tai green light? Collecting technique? Immediately, Dui Ling withdrew his divine perception and handed the jade slip to Xiao Hua. He smiled and said, It's good that you know you are wrong. I only want your apology. You should keep this thing yourself. Dui Ling. Zhenhe was shocked and said anxiously, Quickly let me see the jade slip. Why should I give it to you? Dui Ling was unhappy and looked at Xiao Hua. Why are you looking at me? It's all yours. This Xiao has never given anything to anyone, and I will never take back what I have given. Xiao Hua said indifferently. You have never given anything to anyone? Have you never given anything to Fairy Hongxia? Dui Ling asked with a smile. Why should I tell you? Xiao Hua flew to the side and sat down cross-legged. He wiped his hand and put the green spirit pill into his mouth, no longer paying attention to them. Tai green light? At this moment, Zhen Minghui also woke up and followed Zhenhua to Dui Ling's side. However, Cui Hongshan still didn't understand. Seeing Cui Hongshan's confusion, Dui Qiming hurriedly transmitted a message, seemingly telling Cui Hongshan about the Tai green light. When Cui Hongshan heard this, he looked at Xiao Hua with even more astonishment. Dui Ling naturally passed the jade slip to Zhenhua. Zhenhua looked at it for a moment before passing it to Zhen Minghui. When Zhen Minghui finished looking at it, his face was filled with surprise. Just like Zhenhua, he looked up at Cui Hongshan and said, Captain Cui, we are really lucky. If I'm not wrong, the green light inside the green crab is the Tai green light. It is a type of innate gold qi. When refining qi, you only need to use a little bit of it, and your artifact will immediately become incomparably sharp. This is especially true for artifacts like flying swords. Many of the elders in my Imperial Thunder Sect are searching everywhere for this item. And, senior apprentice brother Minghui, you can try extracting this Tai green light. Cui Hongshan's heart was filled with mixed feelings. However, he was immediately overjoyed. They had just set out and hadn't even encountered a sword cultivator, yet they had such a harvest. This was truly beyond his expectations. Zhen Minghui glanced at Xiao Hua, who was ignoring them in the distance, and said with a smile, Captain Cui, although the green crab is ours, we have eyes but failed to see. If it weren't for your junior apprentice brother's jade slip, this Tai green light would only benefit others. Since that is the case, please extract it, Captain Cui. It is better to leave such a rare item with the captain. Cui Hongshan glanced at everyone, thought for a moment and nodded. Fine, I will reluctantly accept this difficult task. With that, Cui Hongshan took the jade slip from Zhen Minghui's hand. He immersed his divine thought in it for a long time, flew to the place where he had previously rested, sat down, and closed his eyes to meditate. After a while, Cui Hongshan opened his eyes and looked at Zhen Minghui. Zhen Minghui immediately woke up. He clapped his hands, and the huge green crab fell in front of Cui Hongshan. Cui Hongshan made a gesture and hit the green crab. The green light that had been annihilated before gradually reappeared with the incantation, and it became more and more intense. After a while, Cui Hongshan's hand tightened. As his hand grasped, a green brilliance smaller than a mung bean condensed together, and gradually rose from the green crab's corpse. It was a little bit of tiny green light. Chapter 2251. That's great. Everyone's face lit up with joy. They knew that this was the tiny green light. This was a good thing. Even if everyone got some, it would still be good, not to mention that this thing was free. Then Cui Hongshan put the tiny green light into the jade box, stuck a talisman on it, and put it away in his storage bag. All right, everyone, we've rested enough. Now it's time to get down to business. Cui Hongshan clapped his hands and smiled. There must be more good things waiting for us ahead. Good. Everyone was happy and spread out, ready to activate their magic power. However, Dui Ling's eyes were sharp and he said anxiously, Captain Cui, wait a moment. Xiaohua seems to have not finished adjusting his breath. Cui Hongshan, who was grinning from ear to ear, turned his head to look. Sure enough, Xiaohua still looked calm and did not hear Cui Hongshan's order. He, fellow Taoist Xiao is really diligent. He even wants to use this little bit of time. If his cultivation does not improve, it would be unreasonable. Ming Mao also helped him out. Why don't we rest for a while? All right. Cui Hongshan nodded. Will, however, without waiting for him to finish, Xiaohua jumped up and said indifferently, Let's go. I've finished adjusting my breath. Beside them, Dui Qiming was laughing in her heart. She almost laughed out loud. As an outsider, she could see clearly that Xiaohua was going against Cui Hongshan in every way to make Cui Hongshan angry. If Xiaohua did not take out the jade slip just now, Dui Qiming would not be able to guess Xiaohua's thoughts. Now she was not worried about her lover. If Xiaohua had any bad intentions, there was no need for him to take out the jade slip to extract the tiny green light. Even if it was for Dui Ling. Cui Hongshan was a little angry and said coldly, Don't think that you'll be rewarded for taking out the jade slip. Once I get it to Sentry City, the elders of my Imperial Thunder Sect will definitely know. You're just letting us wait in advance. Without waiting for Cui Hongshan to finish, Xiaohua said indifferently, I didn't give you any jade slip. Are you still leaving or not? Gojin Minghui hurriedly interrupted. We'll leave now. As he spoke, he pulled Cui Hongshan's Taoist robe and took the lead to fly into the air. Let's go, Xiaohua. You still have to cover the rear with this concubine. Ming Mao and Dui Ling waited for the others to fly away before covering their mouths and laughing as they held hands and flew up. Xiaohua curled his lips, feeling extremely displeased in his heart. What use does the extreme unity green light have? These 9 people definitely don't know as much as he does, and he definitely wants to obtain the extreme unity green light more than the other 9 people. Naturally, what he wants is not just this little bit of extreme unity green light. Unfortunately, he had already used Earth Escape to the bottom of the ice river and searched everywhere, but there were no clues at all. Apart from the cold, there was no other spirit beast in sight. Who knew where this green crab came from? If Green Crab could return alive, he would be able to bring Xiaohua to find even more green crab. Forget it. Xiaohua flew at the back, still as slow as before. He only pondered for a moment before tossing it aside. Of the 9 sword pellets, only the first one had been repaired. The other 8 still couldn't work. Presumably, the injuries suffered by 9 stars transit that day weren't light. If he had the extreme unity green light, he might be able to repair these sword pellets as soon as possible. If he didn't, Xiaohua wasn't in too much of a hurry. He could just slowly repair them. Thus, Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and flew leisurely. But his mind was focused on the cultivation method. After flying for another half a day, a mountain ridge appeared in front of them. Cui Hongshan stopped and looked at the jade slip again. He nodded and said, This is Chicken Cry Mountain. Wait for me to send a summoning talisman. As he spoke, he clapped his hands and a lightning summoning talisman was sent out. A moment later, several people came out from the mountain ridge. The one in the lead was an early-stage foundation establishment old man dressed in hemp clothes. Behind him were several aura refining disciples. From afar, the old man cupped his hands and said, Chicken Cry Mountain's Lonely greets fellow Taoist Cui and fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder Sect. I don't dare. I'm Cui Hongshan. Greetings, fellow Taoists Lonely. Cui Hongshan didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly returned the greeting. He then pointed at Zhen Minghui and said, "This is my Imperial Thunder Sex Zhen Minghui, my assistant." "Greetings, fellow Taoist Zhen." Lanli turned around and bowed. He said with a smile, "From fellow Taoist Zhen's name, you must be a descendant of the Imperial Thunder Sex Thunder Palace. You're truly respectable." "I don't dare." Zhen Minghui returned the greeting and said with a smile, "I may have a higher starting point, but compared to fellow Taoist land's diligence, I'm still ashamed of my inferiority." "Hee, this is fate," Lanli said with a smile. "Everyone's path is different. If fellow Taoist Zhen was born in my Chicken Cry Mountain, perhaps your accomplishments would be even greater than mine." "Not at all." Zhen Minghui's expression didn't change, but he was indeed bewildered in his heart. They had already met, yet they were still exchanging boring pleasantries. What was the matter? Why didn't they invite him into Chicken Cry Mountain first? Cui Hongshan was also puzzled. He clapped his hands and took out the Imperial Thunder Sex First Team token, saying, "I was sent by the Imperial Thunder Sex Master. I received a message from Chicken Cry Mountain, and came to rescue them. This is my Imperial Thunder Sex token, which is recognized by the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. Fellow Taoist Lan, please check it." There's no need." Lanli glanced at it and said with a smile, "The Imperial Thunder Sex disciples are all dignified people. How can they be compared to the filthy sword cultivators? I can tell at a glance that they're different. I should have invited all of you into the valley for a chat, but now that we're in the midst of a great battle, the crisis of my Chicken Cry Mountain has been resolved. I believe there will be more opportunities for you to show your talents in Sky Patrol City. Therefore, I'd like to ask fellow Taoist Cui to bring the Imperial Thunder Sex fellow Taoists back to Sky Patrol City quickly." Cui Hongshan was stunned. He looked around and asked curiously, "Did Chicken Cry Mountain encounter sword cultivators? What crisis was it? How did it get resolved so quickly?" This Lanli hesitated and said with a smile, "It's nothing. Previously, a small group of sword cultivators surrounded my Chicken Cry Mountain, and seemed to want to destroy my Chicken Cry Mountain. However, under Valley Master's lead, we chased the sword cultivators away. After that, no more sword cultivators came to harass us, so I don't think they'll come again. The message that Chicken Cry Mountain sent to my Imperial Thunder Sect was that they needed disciples with fast flying speed to come over. Was there anything else?" Cui Hongshan was a little disappointed. They had come so excitedly, but left just like that. It was very empty. Lanli blinked, and turned to look at the few disciples behind him. It seemed like he did not know what to say. "Fellow Taoist Lan, the 7 skills sex disciples have already arrived, right?" Zhen Minghui said with a smile. "Don't tell me they helped us out." So fellow Taoists have already met the 7 skills sex disciples," Lanli said with a smile. "If that's the case, I won't hide anything. A few days ago, the 7 skills sex disciples arrived and killed the sword cultivators. The crisis of Chicken Cry Mountain has already been resolved. I'm afraid that I'll embarrass the Imperial Thunder Sect, so I'm too embarrassed to say it." "It's fine," Cui Hongshan waved his hand and said with a smile. "As long as Chicken Cry Mountain is fine, isn't that better than anything else? Fellow Taoist Lan, can you give me a copy of Chicken Cry Mountain's token so that I can use it as proof to explain myself to my sect?" This Lanli was a little troubled. He shook his head and said, "It's not that I don't want to give it to you. Now that the sword cultivators are at war with my Tao sect, this token is very important. It's in the hands of the Valley Master, and he's currently having a secret meeting with the 7 skills sex disciples. I'm afraid he can't give it to fellow Taoist Cui." Fine, Cui Hongshan was in a dilemma. Should I leave or not? Leave without the token, who knows if you've come to Chicken Cry Mountain or not? If I don't leave, it's the 7 skills sect who helped me out. It has nothing to do with me. Later, when I meet the Valley Master of Chicken Cry Mountain, I'll definitely meet the 7 skills sex disciples, and they'll definitely mock and ridicule me. Sigh, this so-called captain, it's really troublesome. Cui Hongshan was almost dispirited. After pondering for a moment, Cui Hongshan smiled and said, "Since that's the case, I'll wait. After all, I'm under my master's orders." Without proof, it'll be hard for me to explain myself. All right then. Lonli thought for a moment, then raised his hand and gestured. Fellow Taoist Chui, please follow me. With that, Lonli flew to the foot of the mountain first. Chui Hongshan and the others flew behind him, and the Chicken Cry Mountain's disciples accompanied them. Chicken Cry Mountain was a mountain ridge, and it was several hundred feet higher than the surrounding snowy plains. The mountains were undulating, and from high up in the sky, it looked like a crowing rooster. That was probably how Chicken Cry Mountain got its name. Chui Hongshan followed Lon Li into the mountain ridge, and after passing through a faint fog restriction, they arrived at the back of the rooster. It was a valley that was several miles wide, and the foundation of the Chicken Cry Mountain's disciples was in this valley. On the stone walls of the valley, there was a rather majestic building. Chui Hongshan followed Lon Li into a hall with a sign that read Guest Hall. Fellow Taoists, please take a seat and enjoy some spirit fruits and spirit tea. I'll go invite the Valley Master over. Lon Li said with a smile. Yes. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist Lon. Chui Hongshan cupped his hands and thanked him. Then he sat on a chair and gave Zhen Minghui a look. Zhen Minghui understood and walked to Lon Li's side whispering, Fellow Taoist Lon, we came here in a hurry, and our teacher didn't have time to inform us. I'll take the liberty to ask for the name of your Valley Master, so as to avoid being rude later. It's nothing. Lon Li shook his head slightly and smiled. My Chicken Cry Mountain is far to the north of the country of Xi, and we're a small cultivation family. How could we attract the attention of the Imperial Thunder Sect? For them to send their disciples over, my Chicken Cry Mountain is already very grateful. I'll let fellow Taoist Jin know that the Valley Master of my Chicken Cry Mountain is Valley Master Zhan Xinjian. Thank you, fellow Taoist Lon. Zhen Minghui smiled apologetically. For Chicken Cry Mountain to be coveted by sword cultivators, it must be famous. My teacher of the Imperial Thunder Sect must also know about it. It's just that we, the younger generation disciples, have little experience and are somewhat ignorant. Fellow Taoist Jin, please take a seat. Lon Li smiled and called for the disciples to serve the spirit fruits and spirit tea. Then he went straight ahead. It's really embarrassing. Xiao Hua saw Chui Hongshan's slightly red face and felt very refreshed in his heart. Even the name of the Chicken Cry Mountain's clan master came rashly. How could it not be embarrassing? This is great. It's embarrassing in front of everyone. Chapter 2252. Chui Hongshan was also helpless. He thought that there was a detailed explanation in the token, so he didn't ask in detail on the thunderboat. When he got out of the thunderboat, he realized that something was wrong. Perhaps the masters of the Imperial Thunder Sect really didn't put Chicken Crow Mountain in their eyes, but Chui Hongshan couldn't. Now that he was here, instead of embarrassing himself in front of the Valley Master, he might as well ask clearly now. Chui Hongshan and the others thought it would be quick, but they actually waited for more than half a day. They didn't see Lon Li or the so-called John Xian. Damn it, it can't be a trap, right? Xiao Hua secretly released his Buddhist sense. All the disciples of Chicken Crow Mountain were normal and did what they were supposed to do. However, there were many restrictions that his Buddhist sense couldn't penetrate. Xiao Hua also couldn't see where Lon Li or the Seven Skills sect disciples were. It's a little strange. Xiao Hua withdrew his Buddhist sense and knew that it wasn't a trap. He thought to himself in surprise. Aren't there too many restrictions in this Chicken Crow Mountain? It's different from ordinary cultivation aristocratic families. Chui Hongshan, who had always been calm, was also a little anxious. Just as he was about to find a disciple to rush them, he heard light and noisy footsteps coming from outside the hall. When Chui Hongshan and the others looked up, they saw Seven Skills Sect's Han Bing, accompanied by a skinny middle-stage foundation establishment old man, quickly entering the guest hall. Needless to say, this tall and skinny middle-stage foundation establishment old man must be the Valley Master of Chicken Crow Mountain, Zhan Xian. Chui Hongshan didn't want to get up because if he did, he would be greeting Han Bing, which would damage the reputation of the Imperial Thunder Sect. However, he was a guest of Chicken Crow Mountain. When the host came, how could he not get up? Moreover, Cui Hongshan was born in a cultivation aristocratic family and had seen the arrogance of the disciples of cultivation sects in his own home. He had long decided not to be such a bad person. Therefore, after hesitating for a moment, Cui Hongshan still stood up. Seeing Cui Hongshan stand up, Zhen Minghui and the others also immediately stood up. On the other hand, Xiaohua glanced coldly and still sat there without moving. Seeing Cui Hongshan and the others stand up, Han Bing smiled slightly, but when she glanced at Xiaohua, her eyes flashed fiercely. Xiaohua pursed his lips and also glared at her. He didn't seem to be afraid, which made Han Bing's surprise. Oh, so it's a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. This old man should go out and greet you personally. Zhang Xian naturally didn't want to offend the Imperial Thunder Sect, so he forced a smile and hurriedly said, however, because fellow Taoist Han from the Seven Skills sect arrived first, this old man had some matters to discuss with fellow Taoist Han in private. That's why I was rude. Please don't blame me, fellow Taoist Chui. As he spoke, Zhang Xian took a few steps forward and bowed. Zhang Xian's bow instantly gave face to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Cui Hongshan was also overjoyed, and hurriedly went forward to return the bow. He smiled and said, I dare not trouble Valley Master Zhang. I came under my master's orders. I'm really nagging. Not at all. I'm more than happy that a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect has come to help my Chicken Crow Mountain defend against the enemy. Zhang Xian said anxiously. I'm truly grateful. Cui Hongshan shook his head. It's a pity that we came too late and couldn't help Chicken Crow Mountain at all. This old man is extremely grateful that a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect has such intentions. Come, take a seat and have some of my Chicken Crow Mountain spirit tea. Zhang Xian smiled and gestured for Cui Hongshan and the others to sit. At this moment, Han Bing also walked in front of Cui Hongshan. She glanced at him with a smile and said, Captain Cui, why did you still come? I already told you that we don't need you here. Cui Hongshan originally wanted to sit down, but now he could only remain standing. He looked at Han Bing and asked, if a disciple of the Seven Skills sect is here, why can't a disciple of my Imperial Thunder sect come? Han Bing raised her eyebrows and sized up Cui Hongshan. She asked curiously, why must a disciple of my Seven Skills sect be here, but a disciple of your Imperial Thunder sect must come? Cui Hongshan was displeased. Han Bing was clearly provoking him. However, seeing that she was a mid-foundation establishment cultivator, he took a deep breath and replied, a disciple of my Imperial Thunder sect received a message from Chicken Crow Mountain. Of course he had to come. As for whether a disciple of your Seven Skills sect comes or not, it has nothing to do with my Imperial Thunder sect. Ha ha. Han Bing laughed and asked, don't you know what message Chicken Crow Mountain sent to your Imperial Thunder sect? Cui Hongshan was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, I don't know. That's my master's business. Fellow Han. Zhang Xian felt that something was amiss. He immediately smiled apologetically and said, both the Seven Skills sect and Imperial Thunder sect came from my Chicken Crow Mountain. They're all disciples of my Dao sect. Why do you have to get to the bottom of it? Valley Master Zhang. Han Bing's expression changed slightly. She turned around and said, I came under my master's orders. I never thought that a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect would come. This matter, this is all a mistake made by the disciple who went out to send the message. Zhang Xian immediately smiled apologetically and said, didn't we already discuss the matter of my Chicken Crow Mountain with fellow Han? Han Bing nodded. I already know the reason. However, I still want to tell some self-righteous sects that if they don't have enough strength, they shouldn't force their way in. You were clearly sent to run errands to find my Seven Skills sect. Why did you send your own disciples? With that, she waved her sleeves and sat down on the chair at the head of the meeting hall. The other early-stage foundation establishment disciples, and a 12th-stage Qi refinement disciple from the Seven Skills sect also sat on the main seats. Seeing this, Cui Hongshan frowned. He didn't sit down. He looked at Zhang Xian and sneered, Valley Master Zhang, I didn't want to be a busybody. I only wanted to get the token from Chicken Crow Mountain and return to Sky Patrol City. However, Since someone said that my Imperial Thunder sect can only run errands, I have to ask clearly. What's going on? Zhang Xian smiled bitterly. He glanced at the smug Han Bing, and then at the ashen-faced Cui Hongshan. He was in a difficult position. This was a competition between the Seven Skills sect and the Imperial Thunder sect. Chicken Crow Mountain had no reason to get involved. After pondering for a moment, he smiled apologetically. Fellow Daoist Cui, are you from Kuan Yu's Cui family or Bainan's Cui family? Fellow Daoist Cui Peng and fellow Daoist Cui Rixin are familiar with me. These two families have a very good relationship with my Chicken Crow Mountain. My Chicken Crow Mountain often trades with them for some artifacts. Hearing Zhang Xian mention the head of Kuan Yu's Cui family, Cui Peng, Cui Hongshan's expression softened. However, he still sneered. Fellow Daoist Zhang, I'm now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. You're putting me in a difficult position by mentioning my family background. Not at all. When Zhang Xian heard that, he immediately reached out and took out a small storage bag. He handed it to Cui Hongshan and said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Cui, this is the token of my Chicken Crow Mountain. Then he transmitted his voice. There are some spirit stones inside and a magic artifact of my Chicken Crow Mountain. Please accept it as a token of my respect. Fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder sect, thank you for coming here. Cui Hongshan was a little hesitant. Beside him, Zhen Minghui smiled and said, Since Valley Master Zhan has given us the token, Captain Cui, we should return to Sky Patrol City immediately. There are still sword cultivators waiting for us to kill. Am I right? Cui Hongshan saw Zhen Minghui's hint and took the storage bag. He nodded and said, In that case, I'll take my leave. Disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, if possible, please stay for a few more days. It won't be too late to rest here for a while before leaving. Zhang Xian was happy and politely urged them to stay. Ha, you're leaving already? Han Bing laughed and said, Looks like. We can only rely on my Seven Skills sect to kill the sword cultivators in Chicken Crow Mountain. Only the sword cultivators in Sky Patrol City can rely on the Imperial Thunder sect. Even if the Imperial Thunder sect disciples stay in Chicken Crow Mountain, they can only hide behind my Seven Skills sect. After all, their enemy is in Sky Patrol City. The Imperial Thunder sect disciples were displeased at this moment. A figure flew in from the outside. Before the figure could be seen, a panicked voice rang out. Valley Master, something bad has happened. My Chicken Crow Mountain is being attacked by thousands of sword cultivators. Zhang Xian was shocked. He looked at the descending Qi refinement disciple and said in shock, Thousands of sword cultivators? What are their cultivation bases? Alright, Valley Master. Most of them are at the 9th grade of Sword Nurturing Realm. A small number of them are at the Sword Drawing Realm. The panicked disciple said anxiously. His Zhang Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. Only a few hundred sword cultivators had attacked Rooster Crow Mountain earlier, and Rooster Crow Mountain alone was already unable to fend them off. Now there were over 1,000 sword cultivators. Even if the disciples of Seven Skills sect and Imperial Thunder sect were added in, they were still no match for them. Ha. Without waiting for Zhang Xian to speak, a loud laugh came from behind Cui Hongshan. Zhang Xian looked over curiously. It was Xiao Hua who was laughing. Why are you laughing, fellow Taoist? Zhang Xian asked with a gloomy face. I'm just lamenting. Xiao Hua's face was lonely. He pointed at Han Bing and said, Seven Skills sect's fellow Taoist Han's enemy is here. Where is my Imperial Thunder sect's enemy? Sentry City is really too far away. My Imperial Thunder sect's disciples are really lonely. Yu Hanbing's face was naturally filled with panic. Hearing Xiao Hua's ridicule, she became even angrier. She said coldly, What is this fellow Taoist's name? Isn't your Imperial Thunder sect preparing to fight? I am Imperial Thunder sect Xiao Hua. What? Does fellow Taoist Han still want to remember? However, even if you want to find trouble with this Xiao, you have to wait until you fight with your enemy. Oh, this Xiao forgot. Fellow Taoist, you have to wait until after the battle. Xiao Hua pretended to come to his senses and slapped his forehead. Xiao Hua. Cui Hongshan said coldly, Shut up. Yes, yes, this Xiao will shut up now, Xiao Hua said with a smile. However, he still said to Han Bing, as for whether my Imperial Thunder sect will fight or not, this Xiao thinks that it will depend on the result of 7 skills sect's battle. Fellow Daoist Han just said that the words spoken are like spilled water. It can't be taken back. Seeing Han Bing trembling with anger, Cui Hongshan was overjoyed. He never thought that this junior brother of his, who he always disliked, was so pleasing to the eye today. However, he still scolded. Xiao Hua, how can you be so impudent? He is a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. How can he go back on his words? Zhang Xian smiled bitterly. However, he didn't want to be entangled with these two sections. He waved his hand and said, let's go take a look and discuss how to fight. Chapter 2253. Please. Han Bing stood up coldly and raised her hand, indicating for Zhang Xian to leave first. The 7 skills sect disciples also stood up. After the 7 skills sect disciples followed Han Bing out of the guest hall, Zhen Minghui whispered, Captain Cui, what should we do? What else can we do? We can only face the enemy head-on. Cui Hongshan sighed and waved his hand. The sword cultivators are approaching. Let's go take a look. Yes. Dui Qiming replied and followed Cui Hongshan out of the guest hall. However, Xiao Hua sat there motionlessly. You're not going to take a look? Cui Hongshan frowned and said, are you really going to hide behind the 7 skills sect's disciples? Yes. Why not? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said, my cultivation is shallow, so of course I have to hide behind them. Yes. When Cui Hongshan saw that Xiao Hua was so shameless, he didn't say anything and walked out of the guest hall. Dui Ling walked at the back and actually gave Xiao Hua a thumbs up. Evidently, he was praising Xiao Hua's calmness when facing a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Tisk, you're still laughing even now. Wait until you see thousands of sword cultivators. You won't be able to laugh anymore. Xiao Hua looked at Dui Ling unhappily and closed his eyes to refine the medicinal power of the Azure Spirit Pill. He released his Buddha's perception and saw the sword cultivator dozens of miles away. Was there a need to look? Moreover, swordsmen who were at most at unsheathing sword cultivation were not Xiao Hua's type. Even if there were over 1,000 of them, they still wouldn't be able to stop Xiao Hua. When Cui Hongshan and the others left the guest hall, there were already disciples of Rooster Crow Mountain who came to greet them, leading them to follow Zhang Xian, and the others who had already flown to the peak of Rooster Crow Mountain. The peak of Chicken Crow Mountain was also covered in deep snow. Although it was not too high, it was enough for one to clearly see the surroundings. Cui Hongshan gradually flew higher and released his divine sense. He could not find any traces of sword cultivators. There were also some small dots in the distant horizon that he could not see clearly. Fellow Daoist John, what's the situation? Cui Hongshan asked in a low voice. Zhang Xian furrowed his brows and shook his head slightly. I don't know either. The disciple on guard duty didn't send another message. Most likely, he had already died. Even with my spiritual sense, I still can't find any traces of the sword cultivator. Oh. Cui Hongshan had a thought and asked, since there are still no traces of the sword cultivator, why don't we? Cui Hongshan did not continue. But Zhang Xian clearly knew what Cui Hongshan meant. He smiled bitterly. Last time, there were several hundred sword cultivators. The disciples of my Chicken Crow Mountain who went out to ask for help barely managed to escape from their encirclement. Now that there are over 1,000 of them, I'm sure they already have the intention of killing us in a single strike. Hearing that, Cui Hongshan became even more confused. He asked again, since the sword cultivators have already attacked Chicken Crow Mountain, why didn't the Valley Master ask for more help? Will we allow them to attack a second time? Alas, fellow Daoist Cui, there is something you don't know. Zhang Xian was still smiling bitterly. Right now, the sword cultivators are coming in large numbers. There are dangers everywhere. Where would we find extra people to help? Moreover, according to the previous records in the valley, sword cultivators don't harass our cultivation families too much. Even if they attack, they only attack once. If they succeed, they succeed. If they don't, they retreat. They are just low-level swordsmen who are seeking a breakthrough. There is no need for them to fight us to the death. There's something strange about today. Cui Hongshan nodded. That's right, Zhang Xian replied. Last time, the sword cultivators surrounded my Chicken Crow Mountain. After fellow Taoist Han came, although there were only 10 of them, he joined forces with me and the elders of my Chicken Crow Mountain to defeat the swordsmen with the highest cultivation. They then retreated, just like what was recorded in the records. Who knows why they came back? How many disciples of your valley are there? Cui Hongshan asked again. About 400. Zhang Xian understood Cui Hongshan's meaning and replied. There were only about 300 swordsmen from before. However, there were several third-grade swordsmen. I was afraid that my Chicken Crow Mountain wouldn't be able to handle them, so I sent my disciples out to ask for help. Fellow Taoist John, since that's the case, with so many sword cultivators attacking, why don't we break through the encirclement now? If we wait for them to come closer, I'm afraid we won't have another chance. Cui Hongshan suggested bluntly. Isn't it the same if we wait for the sword cultivators to retreat and then come back? Hehe. Zhang Xian laughed. Fellow Taoist Cui, it's easy for you to say. Let's not talk about the fact that the sword cultivators have already surrounded us. It's already too late for us to leave. Besides, fellow Taoist Cui, you're not in charge and you don't know the difficulties of being in charge. It's easy for us to retreat, but difficult for us to come back. Behind Zhang Xian's smile, there seemed to be some difficulties. It seemed like he didn't want to surrender Chicken Crow Mountain to someone else. Of course, if fellow Taoist Cui wants to leave, it'll depend on your luck to break through the encirclement now, Zhang Xian said with a smile. Then looked towards the horizon again. At that moment, the sword cultivators were already close enough to be seen with the naked eye and divine thought. Although he had heard the disciples report that there were more than 1,000 sword cultivators, these 1,000 people were scattered around Chicken Crow Mountain. They weren't too densely packed and weren't too terrifying. However, Cui Hongshan understood that as long as he led the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples out, they would immediately attract the attention of the sword cultivators. Many sword cultivators would then gather to attack him. The Imperial Thunder Sect's first team was just a piece of cake in the eyes of these 1,000 sword cultivators. Even if there were hundreds of sword cultivators, they wouldn't be able to fight back at all. What? Are you scared? Han Bing's face was slightly pale, but she still sneered. I already told you not to come over. Now you regret it. Emph. Cui Hongshan sneered. What is there to be afraid of? I'm still waiting to see how the 7 Possibilities sect fights against the sword cultivators. Don't worry. There are no weaklings in my 7 Possibilities sect. Even if there are tigers in the mountains, there will be tigers in the mountains. Since I said so, I'll definitely do it. Han Bing's gaze was fixed in the distance, and she replied without any trace of politeness. I'd like to see how you deal with this. Cui Hongshan's tone was exactly the same as Xiao Hua's. Let's go. We'll go out and take a look. Han Bing waved her hand and said to the 7 Possibilities sect disciples. Fellow Taoist Han, Zhang Xian said anxiously. The sword cultivators are ferocious. In my opinion, we should rely on the defense of Chicken Crow Mountain to resist for a while. When the sword cultivators' attacks are ineffective, we should retreat first. Ha ha ha, if I don't go out and fight, won't I be looked down upon by others? Han Bing laughed loudly, and led the 9 7 Possibilities sect disciples out, rushing out through the restriction opened by Zhang Xian. Seeing that there were cultivators flying out of Chicken Crow Mountain, more than 10 sword cultivators gathered together and welcomed them. Moreover, the other sword cultivators maintained their formation and steadily approached Chicken Crow Mountain. These 10 sword cultivators were dressed in similar clothes, and they were very simple. They were all standing on flying swords. The person in the lead had a red face, and his cultivation was at the 3rd layer of the unsheathed sword realm. The flying sword under his feet was like a panel, and flames were rolling on it. He was extremely arrogant. Just wait and see. Han Bing shouted loudly and ordered the crowd. Her figure flew forward, and at the same time, she clapped her hands, and a purplish-red bamboo segment appeared. Under the activation of her transcendence energy, a red brilliance flew out. The brilliance entered the air and immediately turned into layers of bamboo shadows. While it absorbed the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chi, it surged towards the red-faced sword cultivator. Ha ha ha. Seeing this, the sword cultivator laughed loudly. He formed a sword seal with his hand and pointed his finger. Go! The flying sword under the swordsman's feet immediately accelerated and actually turned into a ball of fire dragon, rushing towards Han Bing's Dharma treasure. Amidst the rumbling, there was actually a kacha sound, and the sky was filled with crimson red. The purplish-red brilliance was broken by the fire, and a lone bamboo segment flew into the air, and a deep cut landed on it. Hiss! Seeing this, Han Bing could not help but suck in a breath of cold air, and secretly cried out in pain. His Dharma treasure was of the wood attribute, and the swordsman not only had a strong attack power, but also had the fire attribute, which was his nemesis. Therefore, although the swordsman's strength was inferior to his, he still had the upper hand in the exchange of blows. Fight! Han Bing was still somewhat eager to fight. She rubbed her hands, and more than 10 green balls of light flew out, attacking the sword cultivator. The sword cultivator sneered. He opened his mouth, and a small flying sword also flew out. It was as nimble as a swimming fish, and quickly pierced through the dozens of balls of light. He watched as the balls of light turned into specks of fluorescent light and scattered in the air. Before Han Bing could shout out break, the spell in her hands also stagnated in midair. This flying sword was really too fast, and this flying sword was really too sharp. Han Bing's spell was not finished yet. Stab! At this moment, to the left of the red-faced swordsman, a tall and thin swordsman shouted coldly. A thin sword also flew out from under his feet, and with a shake in the air, it immediately turned into 3 different shapes, and quickly pierced towards Han Bing's face and chest. Damn it! Han Bing cursed. The bamboo segments in her hands swung, and several bamboo shadows blocked the flying swords, while she quickly retreated. Shameless swordsman! Following an angry roar, a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator from the 7 Skills sect clapped his hands, and a palm-sized yellow shield appeared in his hands. He channeled his Dharma power, and the shield grew to a few feet in size, flashing brilliantly as it flew behind Han Bing. As expected, 2 of the 3 sword shadows were knocked down by Han Bing's bamboo segments, but the topmost sword shadow escaped from the bamboo shadows, and directly pierced towards the shield. At this moment, Cui Hongshan and the others released their divine perception, and looked over. With a muffled sound, the sword shadow pierced into the shield. The shield's brilliance became extremely bright, and the sword's radiance was also flickering incessantly. After a few breaths, the sword's radiance finally disappeared, and the shield's brilliance also stabilized. The 7 Skills sect's Dharma treasure finally blocked the flying swords. Good. A Rooster Mountain disciple beside Cui Hongshan could not help but shout. However, before he could finish his words, the red-faced swordsman's flaming sword whistled as it charged over again. With a loud bang, the shield that was a few feet in size rapidly shrunk like shattered glass, turning into palm-sized fragments that floated in the air. The 7 Skills sect's Dharma treasure was actually shattered by a sword cultivator's attack. Let's go! Seeing this, Han Bing did not dare to stay any longer. With a wave of her sleeve, the 7 Skills sect disciples hurriedly flew back to the Rooster Mountain's defense. The red-faced swordsman did not chase after them, but kept his flying sword, and continued to call for the other sword cultivators to slowly approach the Rooster Mountain. Chapter 2254. Everyone from Rooster Crow Mountain had seen the brief battle between the 7 Skills sect disciples and the sword cultivators. When Han Bing and the rest returned, no one asked. When Han Bing flew in front of Zhang Xian, she glanced at Cui Hongshan and ignored him. She asked Zhang Xian in a low voice, "Valley Master Zhang, the sword cultivators are very aggressive today. How's your Rooster Crow Mountain's defensive array? Can it withstand their attacks?" "Yes, it shouldn't be a problem." Zhang Xian smiled apologetically. "I can't say for sure, but the array was meticulously set up by your sect's elders. It should be able to withstand the sword cultivator's attacks. All right. Han Bing raised her hand and said, "We'll rest for now. When the sword cultivators are tired from their attacks, we'll go out and fight again." "Yes, that's what I think too." Jean Exine smiled. "As long as we can hold on for a few days and nights, the sword cultivators will retreat when they see that their attacks are hopeless." Then, Jean Exine ordered many of his reliable disciples to guard different parts of the array. Looking outside the array, thousands of sword cultivators had already surrounded Rooster Crow Mountain. It was only then that the scale of the thousands of people could be seen. They were so densely packed that they blocked the sky. "Attack!" A loud and clear voice sounded. The thousands of sword cultivators activated the flying swords under their feet at the same time. Each of them revealed their flying sword's original appearance. Without transforming, they stabbed at the Rooster Crow Mountain's defenses. At that moment, a layer of faint brilliance flickered on Rooster Crow Mountain. It was like a light barrier that covered the entire mountain. When the thousands of flying swords stabbed the light barrier, they emitted sparks. The entire Rooster Crow Mountain was like fireworks at night, abnormally brilliant. "It's a little strange." Although Xiao Hua was sitting in the guest hall, he had been releasing his Buddhist perception the entire time. He could see everything clearly. When he saw that Rooster Crow Mountain's defenses were so tight, he could not help but be surprised. The scale of this Rooster Crow Mountain doesn't seem to be comparable to Zhongling Villa. Even Misty Mountain is slightly stronger than it. But why is the defensive array so powerful? Could it be that there's something unusual in this Rooster Crow Mountain? When he thought of that, Xiao Hua's heart stirred. He thought to himself, could it be that thing? Seeing the sword cultivator's flying swords attack, Cui Hongshan's face turned pale. Han Bing's cultivation in the middle stage of foundation establishment was forced back by two sword cultivators. Their Thunder Sect's disciples were at most in the early stage of foundation establishment. How could they be their opponents? There were over 1,000 of them. It wasn't a few hundred people, nor was it a few dozen. There were only 10 people in the Thunder Controlling Sect's first team. If they were spat on, they would drown. Rumble. There were a few faint loud noises. It was the flying swords of the two swordsmen at the 6th level of the drawing sword realm piercing the light shield. The brilliance of the light shield was somewhat dim. Fortunately, the two swordsmen seemed to be tired after stabbing a few times. They stopped and the brilliance of the light shield gradually recovered. Jean Exine didn't panic too much. He only released his divine sense and observed the state of the entire defense. After waiting for 4 hours, Jean Exine waved his hand again, and a small silver flag appeared in his hand. He waved it from time to time, and rays of light flew out as if he was repairing the array. The cultivators of Rooster Crow Mountain, and the disciples of 7 Possibilities Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect, were also waiting for Jean Exine's orders. This was especially so for Cui Hongshan. It was his first time being the leader of a small team. He didn't understand how to command the disciples in battle, so he wanted to see how Jean Exine would take charge. Seeing that night had arrived, what was originally a lively scene of birds returning to their nests had now become the clamor of sword cultivators baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. A dozen sword cultivators dressed in the same attire stopped their attacks and formed a straight line. Under the command of an older swordsman, they urged their flying swords to continuously attack a point at the top of Rooster Crow Mountain. The sword flowers kept appearing at the same point. Quick! Cui Hongshan was a little anxious. He pointed his hand and said, "Valley Master Jean, there are a dozen swordsmen attacking the same place. Don't let them break the array." Jean Exine glanced and laughed. "There's no need to be afraid. If a normal array is attacked at the same place, it will break the restriction. This is also a normal method to break an array. However, my Rooster Crow Mountain's array isn't afraid. After the attack, the restriction will automatically heal. It won't break because of continuous attacks at the same place." Indeed, after the sword flowers appeared, the brilliance of the array did not weaken because of it. Instead, the dermic power fluctuations on it became more vigorous. Seeing such a situation, the dozen sword cultivators also gave up. After resting for a while, they formed a formation again, and attacked the light barrier together. The light barrier glowed again. These sword cultivators are really persistent. They know that they can't break it, yet they are still so respectful. Cui Hongshan frowned slightly. Yes, it's a little strange. Zhang Xian nodded as well. If it were a normal record, these sword cultivators would know that this place is very difficult to deal with. They would have left long ago. This was the second time Zhang Xian had said that. Clearly he did not understand either. How long can Rooster Crow Mountain's array last? Han Bing muttered to herself for a moment and asked softly, "Let me tell you, fellow Han. If these sword cultivators attack without rest, it can last for 10 days. Zhang Xian looked at the night sky and explained, "Of course, as long as they rest for a while, this array will naturally absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and repair itself. It can also buy time." Only 10 days? Han Bing's expression changed slightly. She asked anxiously, "Is Rooster Crow Mountain's spirit stones insufficient?" Zhang Xian smiled bitterly. He looked to his left and said softly, "My Rooster Crow Mountain is not above the spirit vein. It's only because of that thing here that we established our foundation here. This array cannot rely on that thing, and can only be supported by spirit stones. Take a look, fellow Han. This array protects the entire Rooster Crow Mountain. The amount of spirit stones it consumes is extremely shocking. Although my Rooster Crow Mountain is rich, it can't withstand the attacks of thousands of sword cultivators for 10 days and 10 nights. Sigh, thousands of sword cultivators. This is indeed something that I did not expect." Han Bing sighed. Could it be that those sword cultivators have received some news? If we look at the current situation, it is indeed a little strange. Zhang Xian smiled bitterly. However, my Rooster Crow Mountain is not well known in the country of Xi. It seems that those sword cultivators can't possibly know anything about it, right? I hope so. Han Bing pondered. After a moment she asked, "When should we attack?" "Tomorrow at noon." Zhang Xian waved the small flag and used his divine thought to check for a moment before answering. "At that time, the array will have consumed 30% of its energy. We will go out to meet the sword cultivators, and let the array absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to recover some." "All right." Han Bing waved her hand and said, "We will go back and rest for now. Valley Master Zhan, inform me tomorrow at noon." After Han Bing left, Cui Hongshan stood for a while and asked, "I don't understand. Why don't we go out to meet the enemy now? Why wait until noon tomorrow? Please tell me, Valley Master Zhan." It's actually very simple." Zhang Xian did not want to answer, but seeing that Cui Hongshan was also a helper of the Imperial Thunder Sect, he smiled and said, "These sword cultivators have just arrived today. They are like tigers in a spurt of energy. If we fight with them today, the ones who will suffer losses will naturally be us cultivators." "Of course I know this." Cui Hongshan smiled and said, "I think there might be other reasons." "Ha ha ha," Zhang Xian laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist Cui is really considerate. I won't hide it from fellow Taoist Cui. At noon tomorrow, my Chicken Crow Mountain's array will only have 70% of its usual power. It can no longer withstand a full blow from a nascent soul cultivator, so we need to let it recover." "Ah?" Cui Hongshan was shocked. "The Chicken Crow Mountain's array is so sturdy? It can actually withstand a nascent soul cultivator? It's nothing much." Zhang Xian smiled and said, "Isn't the Imperial Thunder Sect's array something that even a nascent soul cultivator in the late stage can't break? Back then, the seniors of my Chicken Crow Mountain had great foresight, and spent a lot of effort to set up this array, because they were afraid of being harassed by sword cultivators. Moreover, the sword cultivators in the past all retreated because they couldn't break the array." Cui Hongshan was really shocked by the foundation of the Chicken Crow Mountain. At the same time, he thought of the words that Han Bing and Zhang Xian had just said. "Fellow Taoist Cui, you all should go and rest too. I will have my disciples arrange a quiet room for you all," Zhang Xian urged. "The 7 Skills Sect's disciples have already fought once. Shouldn't your Imperial Thunder Sect also fight with us tomorrow?" Of course." Cui Hongshan cupped his hands and flew down the foothills with the Chicken Crow Mountain disciples. When the Chicken Crow Mountain disciples arranged a quiet room for Cui Hongshan and the others, who would be able to calm down. After all, they were really going to fight with sword cultivators tomorrow. Especially after seeing the attacks of thousands of sword cultivators and the defeat of a mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivator like Han Bing. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples felt even more uneasy. Captain Cui, there will definitely be a battle tomorrow. Zhen Minghui looked at everyone and said softly. In this subordinate's opinion, since we have already obtained the token of the Chicken Crow Mountain, we don't really need to fight to the death tomorrow. As long as we find an opportunity, we can escape early. What do you think, Captain? Cui Hongshan glanced at Zhen Minghui and said with a bitter smile. Senior brother Minghui, do you think that I don't want to escape with my junior brothers? Didn't you see the sword cultivators' stance? They didn't plan on letting the Chicken Crow Mountain disciples escape at all. Besides, we don't have any flying magic tools. Even if we escape, it won't be our turn. I'm afraid that the Seven Skills Sect disciples are much faster than us. That Seven Skills Sect seems to be in some kind of shady business with the Chicken Crow Mountain. Zhenhua said softly. Look at how they're sending flirtatious glances at each other. There must be some unspeakable filth. Ha ha ha, senior brother Zhenhua. That's not how you use flirtatious glances. Dui Ling laughed loudly and pointed at Zhenhua. How could Senior Han Bing flirtatious glances at Senior Zhan Xian? Ha ha ha, everyone laughed when they heard this. The tension in the quiet room was reduced by half. Yes, the Seven Skills Sect is a tool refining sect. I'm afraid that the Chicken Crow Mountain is a cultivation sect affiliated with the Seven Skills Sect. This isn't considered strange in the Dawn Rain continent. Cui Hongshan nodded and said, this is a matter between them. It has nothing to do with my Imperial Thunder Sect. Tomorrow, we will there's no need to be so nervous. A lazy voice sounded. Chapter 2255. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Xiao Hua, who had been sitting behind them with his eyes closed. From the looks of it, the sword cultivators might be coveting something from Pheasant Crying Mountain. Tomorrow, we will go out and fight to see how things go. If it really doesn't work out, we will immediately escape. We are not disciples of Pheasant Crying Mountain, so the sword cultivators might not care. Furthermore, they only want something from Pheasant Crying Mountain, and won't care if others escape. Xiao Hua, the problem now is that we can't outrun the sword cultivators. Dui Ling said very seriously. She had always ignored Xiao Hua and called him martial uncle, just like how Xiao Hua dealt with Cui Hongshan. We have to run even if we can't. We have no reason to work for Pheasant Crying Mountain. Xiao Hua scoffed. Up until now, Pheasant Crying Mountain still hasn't been honest with us. Who knows what secrets they have? That's right. I also feel that there must be a big secret. Dui Qiming echoed. Otherwise, the sword cultivators wouldn't have gathered here after retreating last time. What if the disciples of Pheasant Crying Mountain go to Sky Patrol City and report that the disciples of Imperial Thunder Sect left them in the lurch? Ming Mao blinked and asked. That's right. This is the most difficult. This is what I am worried about. Cui Hongshan sighed. My Imperial Thunder Sect cannot lose face. Tisk. Xiao Hua sneered. They have to be able to escape. Junior brother Xiao, they can't escape, but we can. Chiaosu also sighed. Since we can escape, they can also escape. That's right. Cui Hongshan nodded. What I'm thinking about is how to fight tomorrow to save our lives. I only hope that the sword cultivators aren't coveting something from Pheasant Crying Mountain. After besieging them for a few days, they will retreat. We, the direct disciples of Thunderclap Palace, do have a way to attack. Zhenhua suggested. However, we need to work together and practice a lot in order to succeed. That's right. The female cultivators of Dui Thunder Sect also have this kind of combined attack technique. Dui Qiming nodded. Hence, everyone started to discuss the two kinds of joint attack techniques. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui nodded and exchanged a glance. Cui Hongshan said, since there are more disciples from Thunder Palace, let's use their joint attack technique. Let's not waste any more time. We don't count me in. Another untimely voice sounded. What are you doing? Xiaohua, do you not want to live anymore? Cui Hongshan stood up and said angrily. Hongshan, Dui Qiming hurriedly pulled Cui Hongshan back and smiled. It's just one night. We might not even be able to familiarize ourselves with each other. One more Xiaohua or one less Xiaohua doesn't make a difference. If he doesn't want to train, then so be it. Cui Hongshan was so angry that he sat down and stopped talking. Junior brother Xiao, if you don't want to train, then go and meditate. Dui Qiming smiled and said, just stay behind us tomorrow. Nothing will happen. Xiaohua looked at everyone. Everyone had different looks in their eyes. Some were puzzled, some were disdainful, but fortunately, no one was taking joy in his misfortune. Hee, little brother just feels that it's useless to do any joint attack technique now. Tomorrow, as long as we stand back to back and form a circle, we won't be in too much danger. Xiaohua smiled and said, then let's wait until the crisis here is over before discussing the joint attack technique. When everyone heard this, their eyes lit up. However, Cui Hongshan sneered and said, you think you're the only smart one? Can't this Cui and the others think of it? Even if we form a circle, we don't have to worry about our backs. However, don't forget that behind us is Chicken Crow Mountain. How can there be a sword cultivator? Even if we form a circle, if a 5th stage sword cultivator flies over with his flying sword, who among us can block it? Alright, this is Zhao's suggestion. Just wait and practice. As Xiaohua spoke, he turned around and walked out of the quiet room. He entered a quiet room nearby, opened the restriction, and actually closed the door to meditate. This vile spawn. Cui Hongshan was very angry. We're discussing how to fight and how to survive, yet he's mocking and ridiculing us, giving us blind ideas. Tell me, how can this Cui not be angry? Everyone was silent. Previously, Xiaohua was a bit strange, so everyone endured it. However, what he said today was incomprehensible to everyone. AI Captain Cui, everyone has their own ambitions. Zhen Minghui looked at Dui Qiming's helpless expression and smiled apologetically. Perhaps Xiaohua has his own ideas, or perhaps he has his own way to survive. He can survive? Even monkeys know how to laugh. Cui Hongshan snorted. Just foundation establishment. Speaking up to here, Cui Hongshan paused slightly. After all, there were 3 aura refining disciples who hadn't built their foundation for a long time here. How could he say this? Hee, let's continue with the joint attack technique. Dui Qiming hurriedly said. After all, the more proficient we are, the more we can survive. Not to mention that the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples were practicing their joint attack techniques. Xiaohua was sitting in a quiet room, calm and collected. The 10 people formed a circle, which was within his range of assistance. Even if 9 people were attacked at the same time, he could still rescue them. AI, there's no other way. Xiaohua sighed. The higher you stand, the further you can see. How can others know that what you say is the most correct? Hee, this young master has to go and see what 7 Skills Sect and Chicken Crow Mountain are exchanging glances with each other. If it's that thing, then this young master can't come here in vain. As he spoke, Xiaohua's figure gradually disappeared like an ink painting fading. It was the devil technique that Zhang Qingxiao gave Xiaohua. Xiaohua flew out of the quiet room, and immediately arrived at the valley of Chicken Crow Mountain. He released his Buddhist awareness and looked around. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xian wasn't at the foot of the mountain. There was only another early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, from Chicken Crow Mountain, holding the command flag. At this time outside Chicken Crow Mountain, many sword cultivators were still attacking without any pause. The brilliant sword light and all kinds of flying swords attacked the light barrier one after another. It was even more dazzling than during the day. Just a moment ago, you were still guarding this place. My Imperial Thunder Sect left for a while, and then you left by yourself. If there's nothing fishy, then who would be convinced? Xiaohua coldly snorted and raised his eyes to look inside Chicken Crow Mountain Valley. These places were all on top of the stone walls. There weren't any stairs or passageways, so they could only fly over. At the entrance of each stone wall, there were 2 disciples of Chicken Crow Mountain guarding it. However, how could this be enough to stop Xiaohua? Xiaohua landed on the ground and with a flash, he entered the ground and directly flew towards the stone wall. Oh, this Chicken Crow Mountain's great formation is indeed tight. Xiaohua landed on the ground and soon encountered a layer of restriction. This restriction was the same as the formation outside the mountain. Xiaohua naturally understood that it was the great formation of Chicken Crow Mountain. Following this restriction, Xiaohua went up the stone wall. When he saw another thin layer of restriction, Xiaohua knew that this was the restriction on the stone wall. He didn't dare to be careless, fearing that he would destroy the entire great formation. After circling around, he discovered that the restriction on the stone wall wasn't connected to the great formation. Moreover, it was a kind of warning formation and not a defensive formation. Choosing a seemingly ordinary place, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out several spirit talismans. Soon after, he hit them on the restriction. Once the spirit talismans came into contact with the restriction, they immediately merged with it. Rise. Xiaohua was very confident. With a grab of his hand, several spirit talismans flashed with a strange brilliance. Following which, a gap the size of a person appeared in the restriction. At the same time, an ear-piercing sound and a strange magic power fluctuation were emitted. Hee. Xiaohua didn't find it strange at all. His figure flashed and flew into the gap. With a grab of his hand, several spirit talismans fell into his hand, and his figure disappeared again. In just a short moment, two figures flew over with extreme speed. It was Han Bing and Zhang Xian. It's here. Zhang Xian pointed with his hand and looked nervously at the place where Xiaohua entered. That's not right. Han Bing's divine sense swept over and frowned. The restriction here is intact. There aren't any traces of damage. That's right. Zhang Xian was also puzzled. He scanned with his divine sense again and said strangely, "Ha! I'm afraid Valley Master Zhang is too nervous." Han Bing laughed loudly. She spread out her divine sense again and looked forward a little. Zhang Xian scratched his head and said with a smile, "That's right. Right now, there are thousands of swordsmen attacking outside Rooster Cry Mountain. I can't help but be nervous." That's strange again. Han Bing was a little puzzled. How could sword cultivators know that Rooster Cry Mountain has the Tai Green Light Mother? Did the news leak somewhere? I'm also puzzled. Zhang Xian said with a bitter smile. Ever since my Rooster Cry Mountain received the help of Seven Skills Sect and discovered the Tai Green Light Mother, we have been very low-key. All the cultivators in the country if she don't know about it. How could sword cultivators know? Could it be that we're being overly suspicious? Han Bing said doubtfully. I hope we're wrong. Zhang Xian smiled bitterly. If sword cultivators find out that there's the Tai Green Light Mother here, I'm afraid they'll turn out in full force. Hee, that's right. Han Bing said with a smile. This Tai Green Light is really too important to sword cultivators. Their flying swords have been tempered by the Tai Green Light Mother, who knows how much more powerful they are now. Unfortunately, this Tai Green Light Mother is too small. Only 2 flying swords can be tempered at a time. Zhang Xian said regretfully. Also, for some reason, this Tai Green Light Mother is getting weaker by the year. Supposedly, the Tai Green Light Mother is the mother of innate gold qi. It can extract an extremely small amount of innate gold qi from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to repair itself. Haha, this isn't considered a pity. It's a pity that our 7 Skills sect can't move the Tai Green Light Mother to the Lianyan Sea. Otherwise, Valley Master Zhang wouldn't have to live here and live in fear every day. Han Bing laughed. I'm afraid no one in the Dawn Rain continent knows that the disciples of Rooster Cry Mountain have long belonged to 7 Skills sect. Hee, senior brother Han, you can't let the disciples of Imperial Thunder sect hear this. Zhang Xian said with a smile. Otherwise, the first team of Imperial Thunder sect will be a laughing stock. They actually died for 7 Skills sect. Hee, they're going to die at the hands of sword cultivators tomorrow. How would they know about this? Han Bing sneered. They're just early-stage Foundation establishment brats. Yet they want to come to Rooster Cry Mountain? They really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Oh right, Valley Master Zhang. The next time you send a messenger disciple, you must be careful. You must not make any mistakes. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Qidian. Com. Chapter 2256. Yes, I understand. Jean Xian cupped his hands and said, however, tomorrow, are we not retreating? Yes, the pavilion master has ordered that this Tai green light mother is extremely important and cannot be lost. Jean Xian smiled bitterly and said, if the pavilion master has such intentions, he should have sent more disciples. Cough cough, Han Bing coughed twice and said, how would the pavilion master know that the sword cultivators would send so many swordsmen? Furthermore, if more disciples from our 7 skills sect came, everyone would notice Chicken Crow Mountain. Jean Xian shook his head and turned around saying, since that's the case, we still need to discuss tomorrow's battle. Even if the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples have to risk their lives to block some sword cultivators and make some sacrifices, our Chicken Crow Mountain disciples cannot be lost. Furthermore, tomorrow is only a test. The real retreat will be 3 days later. Tomorrow, we cannot let the sword cultivators see that we are not sincere in fighting. Isn't that easy? Han Bing said as she walked. We just need to defend Chicken Crow Mountain with our disciples. But I don't want to lose more disciples tomorrow. Jean Xian's voice came from afar. Humph, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua's figure was concealed. He was several feet away and could hear the two's words clearly. They are actually using our Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples as sacrifices. Furthermore, this Chicken Crow Mountain is actually 7 skills sect's territory. How can I not take this Tai green light mother? However, if the 7 skills sect can't take it away, I'm afraid I can't either. Xiao Hua was somewhat hesitant, then he sneered. Humph, even if I can't take it away, I'll still bring disaster to you and make you regret it endlessly. Then, Xiao Hua did not reveal himself and flew into the depths of the restriction. The interior of the cave was tangled and complicated. Xiao Hua was almost dazzled. After much difficulty, he finally found a secret place. This was a fist-sized black hole that was completely unremarkable. There was nothing special about it in his divine sense. No one would pay much attention to it if they flew past it. However, Xiao Hua could feel it because an extremely sharp aura was faintly emitted from the fist-sized black hole. That aura was emitted by the Tai green light in the dream execution dream. Oh, that's strange. When Xiao Hua executed his earth movement technique with the intention of entering the black hole, he noticed that the surroundings of the black hole were extremely hard, and it was actually even harder than metal, so he was utterly unable to enter it. Then, Xiao Hua flew into the distance and entered the stone wall, heading towards the black hole. However, as soon as he came into contact with the black hole, he was blocked by a layer of metal. Earth escape couldn't work. I understand. Xiao Hua immediately realizes. This so-called Tai green light mother has long since condensed the surrounding area into gold and stone because it released the Tai green light. Naturally, he couldn't enter through the earth escape technique. Only the metal escape technique that yours truly didn't know could be used, right? No wonder the 7 possibilities sect's cultivators couldn't move it away. They must have been blocked here. This fist-sized black hole indeed baffled the cultivators of the 7 possibilities sect. But could it baffle Xiao Hua? Xiao Hua kept all the storage bags and other items into his space. His entire body gradually shrunk and turned into a long and thin line. His body floated and shot into the black hole like an arrow. Xiao Hua used a transformation technique and flew into the black hole. Before he could stop, a reddish-yellow light pierced into his eyes. Xiao Hua hastily closed his eyes in shock. However, the yellow light in front of him was still as dazzling as before. At the same time, Xiao Hua immediately released his divine sense in an attempt to see the situation around him. However, a sharp pain came from his divine sense, comparable to the pain of Xiao Hua's primordial spirit being torn apart. Ouch! Xiao Hua was afraid of hurting his divine sense and quickly retracted it. Then 10,000 rays of red and yellow light shot out from under his feet like 10,000 swords, piercing towards his eyes. Pooh! Xiao Hua wasn't sure if this was what he felt or what he really saw. He didn't dare to be careless. He opened his mouth and the red and green execution dream flew out. It drew a sharp arc in the air and flew towards the rays of light that were piercing towards him. However, as soon as the execution dream entered the red and yellow light, Xiaohua immediately felt an extremely warm and familiar feeling. It was as warm as the sun. It was the light that shone on the execution dream, and Xiaohua's primordial spirit felt it. An inexplicable joy and a strange calmness came from the execution dream. Xiaohua's primordial spirit also felt a kind of reliance, a reliance that would no longer be a threat. Thus, the originally sharp red and yellow light immediately became gentle, as if a ball of warm light had wrapped around Xiaohua. Good boy. This is really the mother of the Tai green light. Xiaohua came to a realization. He knew that it was the Tai green light on the execution dream that allowed him to escape the power of the innate gold qi. Xiaohua tried to open his eyes. Although the yellow light was still glaring, it was more like the warmth of a mother and less cold. Ah? Although Xiaohua was already prepared, seeing the endless illusion around him, he still cried out in shock. Inside the yellow light, there were many flying swords, many weapons, and all kinds of other things. They were constantly changing, as if it was another world, almost sucking his gaze in. Following Xiaohua's cry of surprise, his gaze had already penetrated far into the illusion, and he almost couldn't retract his gaze. Xiaohua hurriedly closed his eyes, feeling dizzy. He felt that his entire body had fallen into the illusion just now, and his body had already turned into one of the billions of weapons. When his body stopped spinning, Xiaohua felt his limbs and knew that he hadn't fallen into the illusion. Only then did he carefully open his eyes, not daring to face the red and yellow light directly. At this time, Xiaohua's execution dream had already flown down a few feet and was revolving around a golden light spot smaller than a green bean. The endless red and yellow light came from this golden light spot. From time to time, there would also be strands of green light shooting out. As soon as these green lights shot out, they were immediately absorbed by the two flying swords near the dream executioner. Needless to say, these two flying swords were the flying swords refined by the Seven Skills sect. This golden light spot was the mother of the Tai green light. What? What mother of the Tai green light? Xiaohua saw this light spot and suddenly realized. Isn't this the origin of metal? But then Xiaohua shook his head. No, the origin of metal is incomparably sharp, just like the origin of fire. It can't exist in this world in any form. It can only merge with the void. At this time, Xiaohua's primordial spirit, which was studying the ghost cultivation method and other jade slips, transmitted a trace of enlightenment. Immediately, Xiaohua understood. This is the innate gold essence. Not only can it produce Tai green light, but it's also a rare item used by the ancient celestials to refine magic tools. Good heavens! It's probably the spiritual tool used by the ancient celestials to refine magic tools. I haven't even seen a spiritual tool before. Xiaohua was practically beaming with joy. Xiaohua was still too shallow. How could a spiritual tool compare to an item used by the ancient celestials? If he had the ability, he could use this item to refine a spiritual treasure, or even a heavenly spiritual treasure. However, Xiaohua only knew about spiritual tools. Not to mention heavenly spiritual treasures, he hadn't even heard of spiritual treasures. But, how do I take away this innate gold essence? Xiaohua kept the dream executioner, and also the two flying swords without any trace of politeness. His eyes didn't dare to look directly at the innate gold essence. He scratched his head and thought, I don't know if my primordial spirit method will work. Since he couldn't release his divine sense, he probably couldn't store this item in his storage bag like ordinary cultivators. Only Xiaohua's space could store this item. Let's give it a try. Xiaohua thought that a thief wouldn't leave empty-handed. He released his primordial spirit to store the innate gold essence into his space. As expected, his primordial spirit didn't feel the sharpness of the reddish-yellow brilliance. Once it touched the innate gold essence, it immediately felt like it was being cut apart. Fortunately, it wasn't the first time Xiaohua split his primordial spirit, so he could endure it. Store. Xiaohua clenched his teeth, and the yellow light that filled the sky immediately disappeared. The innate gold essence was actually successfully stored by Xiaohua into his space. Along with the pitch-black darkness before Xiaohua's eyes, an extremely sharp strand of sword qi swept past, and then it vanished. However, Xiaohua didn't care. After all, this yellow light was an illusion, and that sword qi was just one of them. No matter how sharp it was, it wouldn't attract Xiaohua's attention. Ha ha ha, at this time, Xiaohua could only endure the pain of his primordial spirit. He happily threw the innate gold essence into an extremely remote corner of his space. Fortunately, although the golden light of the innate gold essence was powerful, it was obedient under the light of light tracing after entering Xiaohua's space. It wasn't as arrogant as it was in the outside world, and Xiaohua's spiritual herbs and other items weren't damaged. Following which, Xiaohua released his divine sense. At this time there was nothing in the space of Tuzhang. It was empty. Let's go. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid we'll be caught like a turtle in a jar. Xiaohua thought in his heart, but then he spat again. Damn it, it's catching me in a jar. Naturally, when Xiaohua returned to the quiet room without anyone noticing, Zhang Xian of Chicken Crow Mountain and Han Bing of Qiqiao sect didn't notice that the Tai Green Qi mother they valued so much had been taken away by Xiaohua. And the disciples of Imperial Thunder sect who were busy practicing their joint attack techniques didn't know that Xiaohua had left and returned. After swallowing a few green spirit pills, Xiaohua continued to close his eyes and rest. He was determined. Whoever asked him, he cultivated here and didn't leave at all. Of course, until noon the next day, no one came to question him. Instead, he received a communication talisman from Cui Hongshan. Hearing Cui Hongshan's voice, Xiaohua didn't wait for him to finish speaking and broke it. He stood up and walked out of the quiet room. Sure enough, in the quiet room next door, everyone was waiting in formation, each of them nervous. Seeing Xiaohua come in, Cui Hongshan said coldly, "How is it? Have you decided? Are you going to fight with us? Or are you going to stay in this Chicken Crow Mountain?" Chapter 2257. Is there a difference? Xiaohua replied indifferently. If you want to be a coward and get the protection of Chicken Crow Mountain, then stay here. Cui Hongshan said bluntly. If you want to be a qualified disciple of Imperial Thunder sect, then follow us into battle. Whether you live or die will depend on your luck. Humph, whether I go or not, I'm still a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect. I won't stop being a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect just because of your words. Xiaohua sneered. Actually, I don't want to risk my life for Chicken Crow Mountain. However, since you all are going, I have no reason to not go. Otherwise, you all will really think of me as a coward. That's right. Dui Ling immediately clapped. I told you Xiaohua will definitely go. Even if we die, we will die together. Go. Xiaohua glared at her and said angrily. If you want to die, then go die by yourself. Don't drag me along. Dui Ling wasn't angry at all. He covered his mouth and laughed. And since you decided to go, then you should have stayed last night. Seeing that Xiaohua had decided to go into battle, a rare smile appeared on Cui Hongshan's face. He said, your brain is active, so it will be easier for you to cooperate with us. In a while, when we fight, you will have a higher chance of survival. Xiaohua originally wanted to retort sarcastically, but when he saw everyone's solemn and stirring expression of the wind is bleak, the water is cold, the brave warriors have left and will not return, he also felt respect in his heart. He waved his hand and said, you all fight to your heart's content, I will be behind you. Ha ha ha, Ming Mao was the first to laugh. She shouted, Xiaohua, you really have the nerve to say that. I didn't practice any joint attack techniques. Naturally, it's best for me to hide behind you all. Xiaohua said indifferently. Don't listen to Xiaohua's nonsense. Cui Hongshan waved his hand. On the battlefield, who will care about him? If he doesn't fight, how can he let us protect him? Let's go. Immediately, Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui led the way out of the quiet room. Following the route they entered yesterday, they arrived at the foothills of Chicken Crow Mountain. At this moment, the sword cultivators were still attacking. However, they had already changed into two groups, one group resting and one attacking. He fellow Taoist Chui, you really came. At this time, Jean Xian was already wearing a thin layer of armor, which was faintly glowing. It was obviously a protective Dharma artifact. When he saw the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples all come forward, he said happily, "The Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples really live up to their reputation. This Jean is impressed." If it wasn't for yesterday, Xiao Hua would have thought that Jean Xian was speaking from the bottom of his heart. However, when he looked at Jean Xian's smile, he felt endless darkness and cunning. We are all disciples of the Tao sect. Sword cultivators are our common enemy. How can I not help? Cui Hongshan cupped his hands and smiled. It's best if you can contribute. Another voice rang out. I'm just afraid that you won't be able to contribute much strength. He needs help from others. Needless to say, this voice belonged to Hanbing from the Seven Skills sect. Cui Hongshan did not hold back at this time. He did not know whether he would live or die in a while. Who would give face to others? Although this Cui is in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage, I may not be like some people who were defeated in a single exchange and ran back like a stray dog. If it wasn't for the swordsman's mercy, I'm afraid some people would have died today. Ha ha ha, Hanbing was not angry at all. She pointed her finger and said, "It's all nonsense now. Let's see the truth on the battlefield. If fellow Cui has the guts, would you like to make a bet with this old man?" What bet? Cui Hongshan was stunned. It's nothing. In a while we will definitely fight together. Let's see who comes back first. The one who comes back first will definitely be the loser. As for the loser, there's no need to punish him. He just needs to kowtow to the winner in front of everyone and call himself a coward. This Cui Hongshan only hesitated for a moment before he sneered. Do you think this Cui is afraid of you? Let's slap our palms together and make an oath. As he spoke, Cui Hongshan extended his palm without hesitation. Oh. Hanbing was stunned for a moment before she laughed. She also extended her palm and slapped Cui Hongshan's palm, saying, I didn't expect that the Imperial Thunder Sect, which has always convinced people with reason, would have such a straightforward person. With a paw sound, the two's palms collided. However, Cui Hongshan's gaze landed on Dui Qiming's face. Dui Qiming was not surprised. Instead, there were traces of encouragement, pride, and happiness in her eyes. Sigh, this Hanbing from the Seven Skills sect is really vicious. Xiao Hua sighed. Xiao Hua thought, when will we fight, and how will we fight? Cui Hongshan withdrew his palm and used his divine perception to scan the area. He asked, will we attack from all four sides of Chicken Crow Mountain at the same time? Ha ha ha, are you in such a hurry to die? Hanbing laughed and said, if you want to die faster, then attack from all four sides. Ha ha, fellow Cui. Jean Xian smiled apologetically and said, in another hour, all the disciples of my Chicken Crow Mountain will have gathered. We will attack and let those sword cultivators know the power of our Tao sect's disciples. Then he hesitated for a moment and said, of course we cannot attack from all four sides at the same time. We can only attack from one side. Why is that? Cui Hongshan clearly did not understand. Jean Xian pointed and said, if we attack from all four sides at the same time, then these thousands of swordsmen can attack us at the same time. However, if we attack from only one side, then only the swordsmen from one side can fight with us. The swordsmen from the other three sides do not know that we are attacking in full force. They must be afraid that some disciples will break through from other sides, so they will not dare to mobilize all their swordsmen. Oh, I see. Cui Hongshan suddenly understood. What? Xiao Hua was clear in his heart. If the swordsmen from the other three sides all attacked, then needless to say, the sword cultivators were not coveting the tiny green light of Chicken Crow Mountain, but merely attacking. If the cultivators from the other three sides were left behind, then what else was there to say? They simply wanted to obtain the natural golden mother in their hands, and not let the news leak out. After another hour, the disciples of the Rooster Crow Mountain had all gathered. Jean Xian glanced at them and extended his hand, taking out a storage pouch from his bosom. He handed it over to a disciple beside him and ordered, Go distribute the yellow talismans in this storage pouch. These yellow talismans will allow you to freely enter and exit the restriction of Chicken Crow Mountain for 2 hours. After 2 hours, they will lose their effect. These yellow talismans only need to be activated by the Heart Sutra of our Chicken Crow Mountain. Yes. That disciple accepted it and flew down to distribute the yellow talismans. Then Zhang Xian took out some yellow talismans and gave them to Cui Hongshan and Han Bing, saying, "These are specially made yellow talismans for 7 Possibilities Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect. The effect is for 4 hours. You only need to activate it with your magic power. Of course, fellow Taoists need not worry that these yellow talismans will fall into the hands of sword cultivators. Their sword energy will not be able to activate them." All right. Cui Hongshan took them and gave them to everyone. All right. After waiting for everyone to take the yellow talismans, Zhang Xian flew into the air and raised his voice. Fellow disciples, this is a crucial moment for the survival of our Chicken Crow Mountain. This is also a chance for the heavens to test our Chicken Crow Mountain. Your loyalty to our Chicken Crow Mountain will be tested in this battle. I won't say anything else. All of you, do your best to kill the enemy. Only by killing the sword cultivators can our Chicken Crow Mountain survive. Otherwise, our Chicken Crow Mountain will be destroyed in the hands of sword cultivators. Are all of you confident? Yes. All the disciples shouted loudly. Their auras were instantly ignited. What? I didn't hear it. What did you say? Zhang Xian angrily said. We are confident that we can kill all of the sword cultivators. All the disciples shouted again. Their auras were like rainbows. Good, I heard it. Zhang Xian clapped his hands and said, if you are a disciple of my Chicken Crow Mountain, then follow me to kill the sword cultivators. As he spoke, his figure flashed, and he was the first to rush out of the Chicken Crow Mountain's restriction. Kill! The disciples of Chicken Crow Mountain roared angrily. They formed a neat formation and rushed out of the restriction with artifacts and other items in their hands. Good heavens! As expected of an aristocratic family of artifact refiners, everyone actually has an artifact. Seeing the disciples of Chicken Crow Mountain rush out with artifacts, Cui Hongshan and the other Imperial Thunder Sect disciples were dumbfounded. Let's go too. Cui Hongshan glanced at Han Bing. He instructed and flew up first. Yes. Zhen Minghui and the rest responded. They followed behind Cui Hongshan and rushed into the restriction. Xiaohua was still flying at the back. However, just as Xiaohua flew up, Cui Hongshan's voice transmitted over again. Follow behind me. Don't go too far. Oh. Xiaohua was slightly stunned. He looked at Cui Hongshan, who didn't even turn his head. If it wasn't for the fact that the voice was extremely familiar, he would have thought that he had heard wrongly. This young master must have heard wrongly. I must have. Xiaohua immediately denied it. Several hundred cultivators rushed out of Rooster Crow Mountain, which immediately attracted the attention of the swordsmen. Cries rang out from various places. It seemed to be an extremely strange magic artifact. All the sword cultivators surrounding Rooster Crow Mountain moved towards the cultivators and the others. Seeing all the swordsmen gather, Zhang Xian's heart relaxed. However, at this moment, a sharp cry sounded. The swordsmen on the other 3 sides of Chicken Crow Mountain stopped and began to retreat. They once again surrounded the entire Chicken Crow Mountain. Zhang Xian's heart sank to the bottom. This was what he didn't want to see the most. He could only plan for the worst. He would exhaust the strength of the sword cultivators today. 3 days later, he would escape with the details of Chicken Crow Mountain. Damn it! Which bastard leaked the details of my Chicken Crow Mountain? Zhang Xian's mouth was bitter. He really couldn't figure out how it was leaked. Woo! A wave of sword cries sounded. Many sword cultivators stepped on flying swords and formed sword seals. They were about the same number as the cultivators of Chicken Crow Mountain. Rumble! In a moment, the swordsmen and cultivators clashed. Loud noises sounded everywhere. The sound of sword cries rang out incessantly. Of course, it only lasted for a short while before intense battles broke out everywhere. At the same time, miserable cries began to ring out from everywhere, from time to time, from sparse to concentrated. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.